Hello, everybody. I'm David3000 here, and welcome to the return episode of 3000 Hangouts, episode 112. It's the fall season, almost, even though the real first day of fall is here in a month, but it is the first day of September 2023. Hope everybody's having a great Friday night as I am here tonight. Um, and we are back after a 2 month hiatus because I decided to take a break from the show just to work on other projects, and we are back and better than ever. Um, so with this show here, as you can tell, we have three interviews for this episode. The first one, which we're going to start off with, is Erin Perry. This is the second time I'm interviewing in here because um we tried to do this on DMS 3000 News Live via StreamYard, the platform I'm using now. But unfortunately, we had some technical internet difficulties with that episode there. For those who are watching, feel free to say hello in the live chat. Um, so that is why I decided to redo this myself on my own at 6 o'clock in the morning because see, there's a Germany on that one. So Um, that's why I decided to do this separate on my own, so that way I get this interview for 200,000. So, because originally during that DMS 3000 News Live episode, we were going to do interviews for the three shows, one for this one, and then two of Chase shows, I think. But Jason would do that in the fall on Zoom and everything else, which I did here. Um, and also, I just want to say that um, for the format of this show, it's going to change a little bit. Hello there, Dom. Hope you stick around for this episode here with the great interviews we have planned here tonight. Um, it may not start this week because I haven't really come up with any topics, and plus the interviews are basically what this episode is about. Um, but I will say that next week the new format will be at the beginning of the program. I will have three topics just to talk about whatever's on mine, and then after that, um, we will do the interview, one or two interviews, and then we'll see what happens for the rest of that second hour because it's going to we'll go live for 2 hours here tonight. So before we get started with the Erin Perry interview here that I filmed on, well, technically, Erin filmed it for me because he had the upgraded version of Zoom. Um, we're gonna pay a little tribute to Bob Barker, who almost a week ago, this past Saturday, unfortunately passed away. Uh, it was it was difficult to hear that news personally. I with me being 19 years old, I never really got to watch him host Prices Right, because he retired back in 2007. But I did look up to him as one of the greatest game show hosts, game show hosts of all time. Credit to Eric Lima, the fellow Massachusetts native, said uh, him was the Cal Ripken of game shows, and I agree with that. And I have to, me personally, I have to say that to the same thing for Alex Beck, who also passed away back in 2020. So before I start the Erin Perry interview, we are going to take a moment of silence here for Bob Barker. Thank you. I guess it, but I had it on loop for a moment, but mistake. So without further ado, let's start the interview here right now. As I get the video file here rolling, and my camera won't be on for this one because my camera was having issues during this interview.
You're going to need to give me the okay.
Got it. Yep.
And I'm turning the sound off on my phone.
I'm gonna have it play just a little bit. So once we get to that part, I'm gonna have it play just for a little bit here. So once I see myself saying welcome to the interview, then we'll go from there. And hope everybody's having a great Friday night here. Here tonight. So all right. Here we go. I'll do that from time to time.
Okay.
Hello everybody, I'm Debbie here, and today I'm here with Erin Perry. And as you all know, Erin Perry is the daughter of the late Tim Perry from Cars Truck Sales Century and other shows he did a long time ago. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Erin.
Okay. God, so much to tell. I have so many interests. I have a background, of course, in game shows. I worked on the $25,000 pyramid, started off as a production assistant, and by the time I finished in Game Show Land, I was one of the producers of the $100,000 pyramid. That was fun. Loads of pilots with the lovely Bob Stewart and Sandy Stewart over the years. Then I went on to produce commercials and infomercials and marketing and rock events for the TJ Martell Foundation and all sorts of other fantastic things. Always singing on the side, and quit the television world and came to Europe to work on music full time, which is what I've been doing for the past 20 years and loving it.
What made you got into doing music full time, and what is that like?
It took a big leap of courage to do it. Long story short, I had stopped singing for actually a few years just because I got so frustrated with the LA music scene. I got offered a record deal, but it was a bad deal and lot and drama with musicians. And it was, like the movies, just the guitar players fighting. Yeah, it's like, so for all sorts of reasons, I said, okay, enough of this. I'll just focus 100% on television and work my butt off. And that's also why I was able to do the grand adventures that I had with that. But then after a number of years, I started to miss it. And I asked for a sign from the universe because I'm a very spiritual girl, and the universe started giving me great signs. And all of a sudden people were saying, why aren't you singing? Why don't you come sing here with me? Why don't you come do this? Why don't you? And I was like, okay, universe, I guess we do want me singing again. And I was missing it. And I was offered an opportunity to come to Europe for a number of months. And I sold my car and packed up my stuff and quit my job and came for what I thought was about a 5-month event. And all of a sudden I woke up years later going, I guess I'm staying. I guess I'm staying. Because it was great. Yeah. I had great grand adventures. I mean, I ended up being, every time I was doing gigs, my father always said, you never know who's going to be in the audience. And it proved to be so very true. Because one day, Hadaway, what is love, baby? Don't hurt me no more. Hadaway, big dance star from the 80s, very nice guy too, saw me in a club and said, hey, my backup singer isn't available for this gig. You want to come do it with me? I'm like, yeah. And before I know it, Hadaway hooked me up with Paul Young, and I toured as a backup singer for Paul Young and a bunch of other 80s stars. So yeah, grand adventures. It was worth staying.
Absolutely. By the way, it's 6:05 a.m. my time, and your time it is what time is happening?
12 noon. So I'm luckier than we're awake. God bless you for being up so early.
Yeah. Plus, I'm still summertime for me, so I can do that. So, and this is my second time interviewing you because we tried to do this on my morning show for this show, but unfortunately, StreamYard was a pain. But so we are using Zoom. So,
not good. We're hopefully better today.
Yes.
So far, so good.
Yep. better than last time to get started. Anyway, um, how did you start working with your dad on television? Because you worked with him on Car Sharks, I
Mhm.
believe, Show the Century, and
My brother did Sell of
Pyramid.
the Century. I did Card Sharks.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
my brother and I both had an interest in the industry. It's not uncommon. First of all, it's a fun industry. Second, if your dad's a doctor, you might be more apt to become a doctor. If your mom is a doctor,
Mhm.
you know, mom's a lawyer, you might become a lawyer. Your mom went to Harvard, you might go to Harvard. So, it's the thing of this was dad's business. So our mom was in the business too, but she had long retired from modeling and was doing all sorts of other wonderful creative things. But dad was working in the industry. So we were around it. It was fascinating. It looked fun. We had to learn firsthand how hard you have to work in it. On the outside, it looks so glamorous, but you work
Looks
hard.
so easy. Looks so easy, but it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. It ain't easy. You work hard. I on average, I worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. That was average. That was average. My brother
Yeah.
does about the same. So if you only did a 50-hour week, you're like, damn, this was a light week. Wow, wow,
Yeah.
holiday. I had 2 days off in a row. Oh my gosh, wow. But
Hmm.
we loved it. Now, dad as a host never worked like that. But
Yeah.
we in the hack had to do all that. So I was very lucky that my father, gave me a foot in the door. But he said, I'll get you the foot in the door, but you got to open the door. You got to do the work, which was very good advice. So he asked Jonathan Goodson if there was a job for me part-time while I was in school. And they said yes. And I made $5 an hour answering
Mm.
calls for people wanting to be on Card Sharks. So 2 days a week
Oh,
for about 4 hours, I would be like, if you called and said you want to be on the game show, you might have spoken to me. Because I'd be like, okay, are you over 18 years of age? Have you ever been on a game show before? Have you seen the show? Are you a member of a performance union? Great. Boom, here's an appointment to come down to audition for the show. And I did
yeah.
that. But I also just would hang out with dad and I'd go to the studio. I wasn't paid for it. I just went to learn to watch. And I
Yes.
don't I hate to be bored. I want to be useful. So I'm happy to say, even at 17, I was like, I'll schlep coffee. What can I do? Oh, I'll go
Yeah.
photocopy that. So they basically had an unpaid production assistant on the set from me. And I did that for a number of months. And literally, someone got in a car accident one day. And Jonathan Goodson
Oh.
said, you've watched her do the job. Go do it. I was terrified. I'm like 17 years old and I'm doing a job that people much older than me are doing. But he was right. I had watched, I had observed. And so all of a sudden, I had a job on the set.
Yeah.
So that was a perfect example of my father saying, I'll get you the foot in the door, but you got to earn it. And my brother did the same thing. My brother got the foot in the door, but he worked his butt off to also
Oh, yeah.
create opportunities. I mean, like he showed up at my father's agency at the time, and he said, I'll work for free. I'll work for free.
Mm.
And he just said, I'll show up. And every day he just showed up. And one day the assistant was sick and he did the job for 2-3 days for no money. And they said, oh my God, you're really good, and offered him a job. So
Nice.
we had the foot in the door. We're grateful for it, but we worked hard to take it beyond that.
So basically, you did Car Sharks and he did Show the Century, your
That's correct.
brother.
Yeah, because after Card Sharks, Card Sharks was off the air. I had then graduated from college because I worked on Card Sharks basically while I was in college. So part-time during the semester, part-time to full-time during the summer break. And then when I graduated, I had about 2 weeks off, and all of a sudden, Dad said, hey, I hear Pyramid's coming to LA. I know Bob and Anne Marie Schmidt, and give them a call. And I had a job interview.
Yep.
And they loved me and hired me, and I was there with them for years. And that was also a very cool adventure, and learned a lot. And I became dear friends with the lovely Francine Bergman, who was at the time the associate producer, eventually producer of the show, and with all her lovely Emmy awards, and dear friend of mine.
So, what was it exactly that you got that privilege to work on the Car Sharks set?
I'm so sorry. What was the question again?
How did you get the privilege to get the job on the Car Sharks set? Like, how did it get?
How did I do that? Well, see, since your dad's the host, you're very lucky. You have a foot in
Yeah.
the. If I had said I want to get paid, I'm sure they would have paid me as the daughter of the host, but I never asked for that. I just wanted
Okay.
to go up on the set and hang out and watch and learn. So
Like a volunteer.
yeah, so I got in the car with my father, and I was very lucky. I was able to schedule my classes around the shooting schedule because the shooting schedule was pretty standard. So, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
I was really, really lucky that I could do that. The universe was very kind to me with my scheduling, pretty much always.
What were your favorite memories of him working on that car truck set?
Oh wow. You know what? God, there's so many memories. The dear late Gene Wood, was
Oh,
a
yeah.
wonderful man, and I learned a lot from everybody. Jonathan Goodson, smart man, kind man. So I learned that you can have a really well-run set, and there doesn't need to be screaming. There can be a
Oh,
really
yeah.
work atmosphere because I've seen screaming sets, and I knew that. So I learned you don't have to have that. Everyone could do their
Mhm.
job and be pleasant and professional. I also learned them, but again, I was very lucky because my father said, you know what? If the call time is 1 o'clock, you're there at 5 to 1 at the latest. So it was really just I learned some really good ways to be professional from my father and from the other coworkers. And I remember some of the guys some of the crew members were complaining about Gene Wood's warm-up act because they're like, oh my God, it's like he only does like 3 warm-up acts. And my father actually came to Gene Wood's defense and said, his job is to entertain the audience. His job is to keep the audience's
Nice, yeah.
energy up. And he's doing it. So
Yes.
my father was like, I have no complaints. He's doing the job. The audience is up. He does a great job, but he's energized. So I don't care if we're hearing the same joke for the 40th time. It works. So
Oh, yeah.
and so there were a lot of things I learned about that. Like just because you see things, other people don't see things, and you have to remember the perspective of the audience, be it a live audience, be it a studio audience. And I learned a lot about that from my father in terms of how to protect the show.
Oh, yes.
Right. And because my father felt like a producer. My father was a very, very,
Kind of
very
like what Bob Barker did with Prices Right.
well, Bob Barker, you know what, my father always said there were not to disrespect anybody because there's loads of very good hosts out there, but
Oh,
Price is
yes.
Right was a very specific thing, and not every host could do that. You know what?
Only one man.
Well, I think my father could have. In fact, I know my father.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure Dick Clark could have as well. You know what? These are
Mhm.
men with just very smart men. My Dick Clark, also the producer, right? Dick Clark, like my father, came out of radio. There's a very different training that comes out of that for hosts. They have a sense of timing that a lot of people don't have. So if you come out of radio and you know that you've got a 29.5 second spot, trust me, Dick Clark and my father were doing it in 29.5 seconds. But they
Yep.
also, because they were producers, because they were both very smart, they could handle of course, the great Bob Barker. There's so many games in Price is Right. And that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yes.
Not a lot of hosts, I don't think, could handle that to go from one game to another to another. You've got different rules, and it's a very, and also to deal with
Yeah.
audience. I mean, Bob Barker was a rare talent, but I know darn well my dad could have done
Oh,
it.
yes. He's got the experience.
Yeah.
Was your dad? What was your dad like behind the scenes on the set? Was he a dad or just a regular worker?
When we were home, he's dad. End of
Yeah.
story. On the set, we both, and it was mostly me. To me, he wasn't dad. Of course he's always dad, but
Yeah.
I was never at home. You don't call him Jim, it's dad.
Yeah.
It's dad. But on the set, I believe I was the one who said, you know what, Dad, I don't want to call you dad on the set, okay? Because I just don't want to get into a whole
Hmm.
conversation with people. Oh, that's your dad. And it's like, no, I'm there to work, right? I'm
Oh,
there to
yes.
every once in a while, Gene would say, oh, this is Jim's daughter, Erin. But that was, off camera. Okay, fine. But when I was on the set, if I had to go up during the commercial break to because we were changing questions for whatever reason, Jonathan Goodson would make a creative choice. Maybe like, no, let's, for very many reasons, you could change questions, right? And so we're going to do that. So I would be one of the people who would go up and change the questions that were in the podium, the MC podium. And it was Jim. And also because if I referred to him as something other, then it could be also confusing. So it was Jim. He was Jim on the set. As soon as we were in the car or home, it's back to Dad.
Yep. Before I continue, thanks for the follow on Instagram, by the way. And what's great about Instagram is you can actually get in contact with a lot of people who haven't talked with them in a long time. So that's what's great about Instagram. So, other than Car Sharks, what other game shows did it help with?
Oh, you know what? Car Sharks, in terms of my father, was the only show that I worked on. I attended a couple of my dad's shows in Canada, but I was very young. So and I had my own life, you know. I was in high school and I was in the band and I was doing this and I was very, very, very busy. So you know, I think I showed up to Definition once or twice. Headline Hunters a few times, because also I remember bringing my little autograph book, you know, and getting a few very nice autographs. And I went to I got to go to the Miss Canada pageant once, which I was very excited about because my mother would usually go. And one year she said, "No, honey, you go." So I got to go. I was very excited about that. And and my brother and I were in the Christmas parade that he hosted one year. So we were very young, but we were on the floats, you know, freezing our butts off, but having the time of our lives, waving at people on the Christmas parade. That was the Eaton's parade, I do believe. So that was about it, you know, because I was busy doing my own thing. And then when I got out of school, then I was working with Bob Stewart Productions for a number of years. So that was 25. So there was a time when it was $25,000 pyramid and $100,000 pyramid. The staff, we did both shows. So it was hard. So we would tape 10 shows a day. God bless Dick Clark, because I don't know a lot of people who could do that. 10 shows a day. So we would tape 5 shows of $25,000 pyramid. Then we'd have a break and they'd switch over the set. Now, luckily enough, there wasn't too much of a set to change. I will show you one of the things that they had to change. Okay. They had to change this from Dick's podium. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So I got that. So this was in Dick's podium, and they had a 25 and 100,000, and of course, then there was the big one up top, the big board, right? That the crew had to switch out. So we had about a half-hour changeover for the set. Well, 15 minutes of work and 15 minutes break for the guys, and then we were taping the next 5 shows. So that was hard. Those were long days for us, especially for Mr. Dick Clark, who was a consummate professional. So I learned a lot from also Mr. Bob Stewart. Mr. Bob Stewart, who was in television before television existed. Bob Stewart, who created Price is Right and Password and Pyramid and dozens upon dozens of other shows. One time we had an anniversary party, and I'd been working with Bob for a number of years. So I'd already worked on a bunch of pilots with him. So I learned the whole pilot process and how, and you know, doing run-throughs for the networks and all that stuff. I learned a lot. It was great. Yep. But then there was a cake with all the shows, and I'm going, oh my God, all these shows. Oh my Lord. Oh, I didn't know Bob did that. Oh, I didn't know about it. Then a bunch of pilots that didn't sell, you know, you're lucky if you get 1 out of 5 or 10 that sells, right? So the dozens upon dozens of shows that the man had created. So I learned a lot from Mr. Bob Stewart. And of course, Anne-Marie Schmidt and Francine and David, you know, I was very lucky to be with people who'd been in the business quite some time and were professional and smart and lovers of the game and holding great respect for Bob Stewart. So, you know, it was great. It was great training ground.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And as for Pyramid, did you work on that set for a while, right?
Which one?
You worked on Pyramid.
Oh, I worked on Pyramid from start to end in the Los Angeles run, not New York. I am in New York on the $10,000 pyramid. That's so wrong. And I wrote them and said, no, I didn't work on that show. I would have been 10 years old. So no. So I worked on the $25,000 pyramid. Would it hit Los Angeles in, what would that be? 1982, I think.
Okay.
So I was there with and it was the $25,000 pyramid, I think, or was it the 10? No, I think it was a $25,000 pyramid. I don't think it was the 10. and then the $100,000 pyramid went into syndication, and so then one time there was one, and then one time there was both, and all that. So until that run stopped with Bob Stewart,
Oh yeah.
I was there until I forgot how long, but it was years.
What was me and Dick Clark like?
Oh, Dick Clark is the consummate professional. Dick Clark, I was really lucky to see him do his thing because he was a great host, but again, a producer.
Yeah.
He was a producer. My father thought like a producer, but Dick Clark was a producer, and but Dick also had a great deal of respect for Bob Stewart. They went back a long time. Bob Stewart gave Dick a job when, if I recall correctly, because Dick had huge success in his youth, but then as often happens, all of a sudden things just kind of fell apart, and he had to start from scratch again. And Bob Stewart gave Dick a job when he was in that one and only time in his life that was like, shit, what happened? And he built it up, and it never fell again, right? So they went back a long time, and so lots of love and respect for each other. And but Dick he was the host on the set. There were only a couple of times when because I was in charge of the big board, right? So I was behind hidden in a curtain so no one could see what we were doing. First, I was Bob's assistant, and then Bob observed me, and then Bob said, "You got it, I'm leaving." And he would only show up for the $100,000 tournaments sometimes. He would just let me do it. And Francine, or then later David Michaels, would be up in the booth judging the show, which is oh my God, I have nightmares about that. Because a couple of us did it during rehearsals just to train, so there were backups. That's one of the hardest jobs ever. I mean, I still have nightmares. I still have nightmares about programming the end game. Let me tell you, I have nightmares because there are times when you had to make a change for various reasons, like because beforehand we already look at the front game, right? I'm digressing for a moment here. We look at the front game. So let's say the front game has a thing about comic book characters. We don't want that in the end game, right? So we already do a proof, and I have a production assistant with me, double checking me, right, making sure, and as I did for Bob when I was new. And so you would kind of have a rough idea what you would do, and it was in an envelope and on my body, guarded, right? But sometimes you'd have to make changes because it was like because maybe Anne-Marie Schmidt made a change in the front because this is too easy for the talent. They're kicking our butt. They're doing great. People like Marky Post and plenty of other celebrities are just phenomenal pyramid players. You had to make it a little bit harder to make it interesting, and for other players you had to make it a little bit easier because it's a very skill-based game, but also information-based, right? So we were making changes to try and make everything interesting and fair, right? So balancing it out. Therefore, we're making changes in the back. But there were a few times, just a few, that Dick would be like, "What the heck are you doing?" Like back to me, and I'm like, "I'm not the judge," but he's like, "What was that call?" No, because he would never do it. He was too professional to do that on camera. I think one time he was just sort of like, "Oh, we're going to question that," but he was consummate professional. But really, I can count on one hand in the maybe decade, I forgot how many years I worked with that man, that he actually was like, "What?" But he was a host who did his best to keep his producer hat off because Bob Stewart was the producer, because Sandy Stewart was the producer, because Francine Bergman was the producer, because I was the producer later. And so it's so he did his best to really be the fantastic host and leave his producer desk at home, hat at home. And I respect that. He was hired to be a host, not to be a producer. So but as with my father, the job of the host is to make the contestants comfortable, to make sure the game runs well, and protect the game. And that's why I said only a handful of times did he question something, because he was protecting the game.
Absolutely. And how did he get the producer job later on?
I'm so sorry?
How did he get the producer job later on?
How did I get the producer job later on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. you know what? Worked up the ranks. My first job was fresh out of college, was a production assistant. And,
Mhm.
I basically, my job was, I had lots of jobs. So I won't bore you with the jobs I had but what I would do is when I finished my job, I would walk into the office that Francine Bergman and David Michaels shared. Francine, who was the associate producer at the time, David was the production manager. And when I finished my work, I went into their office and said, I'm done with my work. What else can I do? And all of a
Nice.
sudden, David would say, here, do the production schedule. So I learned how to do production schedules. And, first, obviously, he would check me, right? And eventually was like, no, you
Yep.
got it now. So when Francine left the show to go to New York, David moved up to associate producer, and I had already done some of the production manager jobs. So I became production manager just because. And then later on, then David was up to producer. I was associate producer. And then on the $100,000 pyramid, I was made co-producer. So I worked my way up, and that was because also Bob Stewart, like I said, I learned a lot from him. And I was his assistant backstage with the board, the end game. And then sometimes he let me program it, that we called it programming it, write and decide what goes. And he would check me. And then he stopped checking me. And we made a deal that if I was doing that without, if I was doing the job of the producer, I would get the producer title. And
Oh
that's
yes.
so I've been doing the job, and eventually he was like, okay, you got the title.
What was your favorite contestants on Car Search, Pyramid, and Sail the Century?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. What about the contestants, please?
What was your favorite contestants on Car Search,
Well, I'm so
Pyramid, and
sorry.
Sail the Century?
I don't remember really names. I would recognize faces of people, but I couldn't tell you names. I mean, obviously, we were thrilled. It's exciting when someone wins the big money. It really is.
Yes.
When especially like card sharks, and you're looking at them betting the kind of money they're betting on the flip of a card.
Oh
That's
yes.
that's exciting, right? And
Yeah.
so you're excited. You're watching this, and there's nothing we can do, right? The cards were shuffled backstage. They were cut backstage by the contestants with the legal department. It's all done absolutely correctly and all that. And there's nothing we could do about it. So we're an audience member at that time watching that end game, and it was really, really excited. Pyramid was a different kind of stress for me because I'm sitting there going, God, I hope I did a good job, because
Oh yeah.
it's you can't give away the money every day. You can't. There's not enough money in the budget, right? So you have to make it hard enough that people don't win it every day, but that they're not destroyed, right? The last thing is you want someone just getting two things right. If you've done your job right, they get 5 out of 6 right, like 5 out of 6 times, and win it.
Oh yes.
That's when I've done my job right. Every once in a while, I remember one time, because there was a time when I didn't know about the budget, right? Bob would just say, okay,
Oh yeah.
he'd say, okay, give him a chance at the win. Now you can't guarantee it, right? Because you can sit there and go, okay, you know what, maybe I won't make it quite so hard, and maybe this is because I thought they were going to win it last time, and they didn't, because you do want like you're budgeted for about 2 wins a week, right? But again, you never know. You think you've got no, they're just going to get 4 or 5 right on this one, and all of a sudden they would, whoa, and you're like, I remember I got yelled at once by Bob Stewart. He was like, what? I'm like, I'm sorry, Bob. He's the only time he yelled at me. And then the next day he apologized. In fact, there were flowers on my desk because he apologized to me. And everyone said, he's done it too. You didn't make any mistake. And even he said, nah, I've done it too. Right. But in the moment he was like, oh my God, you just cost me $25,000. I'm like, oh God, so this is why I still have nightmares about it sometimes. But
Oh yeah.
so like I said, so I can sit there and root for contestants, and root for the celebrities, and who doesn't love Betty White, one of my favorite celebrities for Pyramid. But there's so many, Marky,
Oh yeah.
so many wonderful, really nice people and great Pyramid players, right? So
Oh yes.
so you're happy when they win, but as the person programming the big board money, I'm nervous. I'm
Yeah.
like, I care in that moment. I care about doing my job right.
And Perryman is how Betty White got to meet you.
Oh, well, I met Betty a number of times, of course, because of Pyramid. And Betty was very good friends with Bob Stewart and Anne Marie Schmidt. And so I learned, and Bob Stewart introduced Alan Levin and Betty White, because at the time, Bob was producing Password, which he created, and Alan Levin and he were friends, and Betty was a guest. And Bob Stewart told me this story personally, that Betty White showed up on the set and Alan Levin was struck him and said, I'm going to marry her. Like they hadn't even been on a date. He was like, I'm going to marry her. And Bob's like, oh, she's a great dame, because he would say dame. I'm like, Bob, dame, like, hello. Yeah. And I learned, it's different era. He meant no disrespect, right? He played cards with these great dames, right? Dame, D-A-M-E, right? Great dames. So for him, from his generation, that wasn't an insult. And I had to learn to like get over it, Erin. It's just, he meant it as a compliment, just different words, right? So he was like, oh, she's a great dame, but you don't even know her. And you know what? They did get married and lived happily ever after. So Bob and so Betty was at all of our parties. I was all of Bob and Emery's parties. And Betty was a delight. I remember one time she was performing. It was a big benefit from Michael Bennett. It was for AIDS benefit, honoring the director. And David Michaels was one of the organizers, and he said, asked Francine and I to handle the diva floor, right? So basically the women stars, not diva in any bad sense of the word. These were amazing, wonderful ladies, Georgia Brown and Betty and blah, blah, blah. So Betty was there. And I remember I said, Betty, 10 minutes to stage. And she's like, Erin, I've been waiting on you, because Betty, consummate professional. But Betty was funny. I mean, Betty on stage. Like a lot of people, they're in perform mode and they're not in perform mode, right? Betty was authentically funny, and authentically, she was dirty. Here she's this sweet, and she was sweet as can be. So she could get away with saying stuff that most of us can't get away with. I remember one time I showed up to the set and I was young. I was wearing these big heels, right? And she's like, oh, Erin, you got your FB pumps on. I'm like, I didn't know that term. Betty White taught me the term.
Wow.
So we had a lot of fun with Betty. Totally.
Oh yes, she was one of a kind right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, as you all know, Jim Perry got the Car Storks job because of radio.
Well, Jein, as the Germans would say, yes, no. The radio background was training for him, but it was my understanding it was a game show pilot that he did, and Howard Filcher, the producer of Family Feud, right? Or Password, or both. Oh my God, I'm forgetting. So sorry, Mr. Felcher. He was the producer of this pilot that my father had hosted. It was one of his first hosting jobs for television. He had done, his training came out of Grossinger's in the Catskill Mountains. So that's where he did, he was the singer with the band at night, but during the day, he was out there emceeing, things. With, oh my God, I forgot the Yiddish term. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's a special Yiddish term for the guy who's out there emceeing. There was a very famous guy in Grossinger's. He was famous for his Simon Says, but also was out there hosting. So my father learned from him, how to get the audience involved, how to keep the energy up, how to, do all this. So there was great training. And Sid Caesar saw my father there and then hired my father to be his straight man. So my father worked with Caesar's straight man for a number of years. So dad being the singer was like, okay, as long as I get to sing a song, right? And he laughs. In retrospect, he laughs. He's going, who cares about the song? You're Sid Caesar's straight man. But in that moment, his identity was the singer, right? So he did get to sing a song, at least one song with Sid, but he was Sid Caesar's straight man in Vegas at the Copa and all sorts of stuff like that. That was also incredible training, right, to do that. And so somewhere around there, Art Bear Ben Jolson, I believe, saw him at Gross Singers and hired him for a pilot. They went on to produce Love Boat, but they did a game show with him, a pilot. And so it was all these little things helped train him and had him meet people who saw him. Because as someone once wise said to me, it doesn't matter who you know, it's who knows you, right? So,
yes.
right, it's a really good statement, right? So people started to get to know who he was, that he was professional, that he was smart, that he was reliable, that, you know, and he was flexible. And so he was doing this one pilot, and the pilot involved him making cold phone calls in the middle of the night to people. And
Oh, jeez.
yeah, and that's, by the way, not my father's thing, you know. That's not who he is, you know. But he did it; it was his job, and he apparently did it really well. Now, the show did not do very well. I don't know if it had been sold or if it just did a few episodes. But when they were looking for the host for Card Sharks, and he had, of course, this strong following, strong audience, and strong background from Canada, but he was not known in America, which was actually really great. Because here he's this unknown, but he brings all this professional experience and talent, right? So he's an unknown to most of the U.S. market, unless you're on the border of Canada. But he ain't an unknown when it comes to being on the set and being a game show host. But you know, from what I understand, Mark Goodson was like, I don't know. And my understanding is Howard Felcher told them the story of that pilot my father had done like 15 or 20 years earlier, about how professional he was and how he kept up his energy, and he just kept doing his job no matter how late it was in the evening. He kept doing his job and doing it great, with a great attitude, really tough job. And that was maybe the final straw to him getting the Card Sharks job.
Awesome. And what was his his first job that he ever got in his life, and what was his life goal at the time?
Well, technically, you could say his first job was in the Army.
Okay.
Right, when he was drafted during the Korean War. He was very lucky. He was sent to Germany, and when they were on the ship going across, he ended up meeting a lovely man named Bob McGrath, who was Sesame Street fame. And Bob McGrath and my father became lifelong friends. They both shared this background of being Catholic altar boys and the boy tenor singers in the church. So they had this common youth background. And the two of them, from what I hear from my father, they basically found the priest, minister, whoever the religious person was on the ship, and said, doesn't the crew need entertainment while we're on this boat going across the ocean? And they said, okay. So basically it was like, I got a bar and let's put on a show. So my father and Bob McGrath basically got out of doing a lot of sweeping and mopping, because they're like, we'll put on entertainment. And right, and so that's what Dad told me. And then he became the singer for Armed Forces Radio. So when he was stationed in Berlin, he would be the singer for Armed Forces Radio at night and all that. But during the day, he managed the gym. So during the day, he was handing out basketballs to the guys who wanted to play or whatever. But he did shows, and he got to travel to Garmisch and perform in the officers' clubs and stuff. And he enjoyed his time in Germany. So he told me some fun stories. He very much enjoyed Germany and the food and all that. So that was some really early training for him. And then after that was Gross Singers, where his employment and entertainment continued and his training continued.
Cool. And what was his life goal at the time? Like,
but pay the bills. Pay the bills.
You can have a dream.
And then when I came along, baby needs new shoes. You know, and it was just got to pay the bills. Really, there was. I mean, you know, he loved singing.
Okay.
He taught himself to play guitar. So when the whole Gross Singers thing and Sid Caesar that when that ended, you know, he taught himself to play guitar. He liked folk music, and the folk music scene was getting very big in New York. I don't know if I was even born then or I was in diapers, so it was the 60s. And so he taught, my understanding is he taught himself to play guitar. And so he started getting jobs singing in some of the folk clubs there. He also performed at the World's Fair, 1964, I think it was. And so it was making money. It was, I mean, he wanted to do that and not be in an office. That was just never his thing. He would offer jobs. If I remember correctly, I forgot it, but the FBI or the CIA offered him a job. I mean, he got offered a job. Yeah, one of the two. I forgot which one. They contacted him and he was offered a job. He's like, no, thank you. No. Yeah. So for him, it was he wanted to like it. Who doesn't want to enjoy their job, right? I mean, please, God, everybody loved their job, whatever it is, please. So he wanted to enjoy his work, but he just had bills to pay. He had a baby to feed, so that was a big concern for a while there. Later on in life, then he had desires to do things for challenges, to know, I prove I can do it, or so doing the live television shows and things like that. Just like when my mom was modeling, there were at the time you made a lot more money doing catalogs. So she did a few covers just to prove she could do it. But she was like, screw that. I make more money doing the catalog. So that's what I'm going to do because that'll help us buy a house. Not at the time, the covers weren't going to buy you a house. Covers were for your portfolio and for the ego, maybe. And so she did it. She's like, okay, I got a few covers. I'm good. Thank you. Back to the catalog because baby needs new shoes. They're very pragmatic.
Yeah. So basically, he didn't have like a dream job or like goal in that sort. He just wanted to pay the bills and all that good stuff.
Early on, when he was struggling in the beginning. Later on, he had some goals. He wanted, but you know what? He got to do them. He got to prove he could do live television with the Miss Canada pageant for God, what 20 years or something like that. I forgot. And with the lottery show, the live lottery show, what 2, 3, 4 times a year, and the parade. So he proved he could do live and do it really well. And and Sale of the Century was proof that he could do more than just Card Sharks, and that also took some convincing for the network executives, right? That just because you did one show doesn't mean you can't do another. But they know that. But these executives knew that not every host can do a Price is Right. Not every host can do a Sale of the Century, right? To that speed round. There was one time I heard from my father, they had, I forgot how many questions. I'm going to make up a number. I really don't remember if this is correct. They had 25 questions and right, but whenever they did it in rehearsals, they needed 20 questions. My father could go fast. My father went through that speed round, and there was one time he was on the 25th question. He was on the last question. And the producers said, "Oh my God, what were you going to do?" He said, "I was thinking up a question in my head." That's father, the bright producer thinking person. He was thinking up a question to make up if they ran out of questions in that speed round. So how many hosts could do that? Dick Clark could do it, probably Bob Barker, maybe some others, I don't know. But to do the speed round like he did, plus the whole thing with the I'll pay you to do this, that whole thing, I'll trade you this. Now that a lot of hosts could do that. But to switch off like that, and so the network executives at NBC, from what I heard, were like, I don't know. He did Card Sharks, he did a good job, but I don't know. But then they saw my father, and I told you this in that wonky interview we had last time.
Yeah.
They saw him hosting a pilot for Bob Stewart, and they were, it was like, duh, how did you not know he couldn't do another show? But apparently they needed to see he could do another show, and they saw him do a really great job on this pilot. I think it was might have been Twisters, and it might have been Twisters. I think so. And that pilot that did not sell for Bob Stewart helped cinch Sale of the Century for that.
Awesome. Tell us his radio experience.
WABC. WABC. Yeah, that was cool. He was late night. And but he would fill in sometimes for the other guys, which was cool. You can actually find on YouTube, there's a couple of his radio checks. And I must say, I found one, or someone sent me, I forgot, a year or two ago, and I was stunned because that was like not my father as I know my father, right? Fast talking, I know my father's funny and I know my father could talk fast, but this kind of DJ humor, that's not who I saw at home. But he was doing that FM, AM radio, late night comedy pause. I'm like, oh God, Dad, I didn't know you could do that. Because again, I was a little kid during the time, but I loved it because I was getting a great 45 collection. Because that was 45s, right? It was 45s that they played, and they always had to have two, right? So they had the one they were using, and then they had a backup. But sometimes the record companies would send 3 or 4, and if there are 3 or 4, then the DJs could take. So once I actually got to go and pick stuff out. I was like 11 years old. I was in heaven, right? Picking out stuff. And he's like, no, we only have 2 of those. You can't take that one, put it back. Okay. So, but I had an amazing collection of 45s from that period, 1968 to 71-ish, something like that. So that was great training. That was great training for him. By the way, we can't see you, David. Your camera's off. It's been off for a while.
Okay. Yeah. Camera's not working, so this is the best I can do.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you? Did we lose you? I think we lost David. So I'll talk a little bit about WABC until David comes back. WABC, America's first 50,000 watt station, I do believe. And I do believe WABC, that great station. Cousin Bruce Morrow, Dan Ingram. It was a great time in music, it was a great time in radio. And, you'd have stars showing up to the station. And I only got to hear these stories because I wasn't at the station. But John Lennon showed up to the station just to visit, say hi a couple times. And my dad told me an amazing story about for a Elton John single. Their record company had sent a cake, right? Saying basically, please play. Okay, you back? I'm back, David. Are you back? We lost our connection for a moment. Okay, well, my device says it's recording. And I was telling a story about WABC with Elton John until David comes back. So the record company sends, the cake saying, please play the single. And the program directors and DJs decided, okay, so hopefully we're getting this. So anyway, so the program directors and the DJs were like, no, we're playing the flip side. And they played the flip side, which I do believe was Rocket Man. And it became a big hit. And the record company sent another cake that said, ignore first cake. So funny little WABC story that hopefully you have on the recording. Because when I lost you, David, I just kept talking.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. They're still a little off here, but yeah, it's okay. So I'm
afraid I'm not
any others?
I'm not hearing you, David. One more time, please.
I don't think anybody, any other celebrities in
sure. Marky Post was an amazing pyramid player and a very nice lady. And Marky had been
other than Betty.
No, because I thought you were asking about other celebrity players who I loved. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Your auto's breaking up. But Marky had been a model on Card Sharks. Marky had been a production assistant at Goodson Todman Productions, but she'd been a production assistant on a different show I didn't work on. And then she got the modeling job on Card Sharks, and bright lady. And so she was like a fill-in model. And then I think she was with us for a while. And then of course she went on to become a star with Night Court. And so she was really, she was a great game show contestant. My God, because I forgot if she was an associate producer or production assistant, but she was, she knew her stuff. Bright lady, one of the best pyramid players, and a delightful, sweet lady, really sweet.
Don't worry about the technical difficulties, folks. It's
You want to ask the question again if I didn't get it right?
All right. Actually, do you want to try calling on WhatsApp? Just let you know, folks, that some technical difficulties there. So let me just do something here. Okay. Let me just have me solo out and have this play. Oh,
But yeah, for a while there, your picture was very wonky, and then your audio was wonky. But now you seem to be back. But anyway, so please.
Okay.
Next question, sir.
All right. My next question is how did the models flip the cards on Card Sharks?
Oh, the models did not flip the cards. My father flipped the cards. The models handed them.
Oh, okay.
So the cards were shuffled backstage with the CMP, compliance and practice legal team of NBC. So observed very carefully. There was also someone from the staff there, one or two people from the staff. They were shuffled. The contestants would go and cut the cards, and then they were wrapped in paper and signed and sealed by the compliance and practice people. So very careful, very correct. And just before taping, they would come out and be placed. Those are heavy. Those cards. I mean, I'll show you.
Yes.
I'll show you. I have one right here. Dropping something. They were big. They were big. These cards were huge, right? So imagine 52 of these, right? So they were quite heavy. So the models would hand the card to my father, and he would flip them. And it was his concept to not just but really boom, snap them, just to make it a little bit more exciting. And so that was a bit of a workout for my father. I mean, I'm okay. We're back.
Some reason it as I'm doing this commentary.
Yeah. So the models weren't flipping. Dad, Jim Perry, was flipping, but the models handed the cards to him, which was nice.
As you saw here, folks, I was not what you call it. All right, let's see. Yeah, we're just having some difficulties right here.
I think the internet is telling us we're done.
Yeah, right here was the part that we were having difficulties. So, let me actually stop. Actually, let me see if I have the right video here. See if I do have that. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing that for now, and let me go to the farewell video, just to skip ahead. You know what I'm saying? So let me do that here. It's in my downloads section. Okay. Here we go. Let's resume.
Allow me to record. cool, because unfortunately our goodbye did not get recorded.
But
So
everything else was recorded, right?
yeah, it's
Everything else was recorded.
yeah, cool. Did you
Okay.
gave me permission? Cool. So
Yes.
I just wanted, we were doing really well for about 45, 50 minutes there, and then everything got wonky. Do you, a
Yeah.
last question, or do you feel complete?
I did want to ask you this. What will you remember Jim as a person and a dad was to you?
Ah, as a person, as with most of us human beings, he was a very complicated person. He had a sweet nature, but he had a don't F with me aspect, which I very much got from him, right? I will give you so
Mm-hmm.
much, I will give you so much, but don't you dare take anything from me, right? Without my permission.
Oh, yes.
And but it's a lot of it's a generational thing, he grew up in the Depression. So it's
Mm-hmm.
that affects people. It affects people deeply. He was not a person about many things, but the few things that he had, he treasured. And I tried to show you this the other day. He had a collection of little things when he was a kid. And this is one of the things he gave me the last few weeks he was alive. This is a little Annie Oakley pre-World War II little metal figure. And this was on his desk, and this is on my desk all the time. So not that I need to be reminded of my father. I think of him
Oh,
every day,
yes.
but it's just a lovely little reminder. It's a thing we shared, putting the little figures under the Christmas tree and stuff like that. So, he was my father. When I go in producer mode, he was a great host who I got to work with and learn from. But he was my father, and he was a man who loved me and who I loved, and it was a man who taught me so much, and a person who I saw grow. Right, I saw him grow. When
Mm-hmm.
people can't change, I'm like, oh no, that's not true. If they want to change, they can change. And I saw my father change in good ways over the decades. I saw him grow to be more open and all sorts of other wonderful things on a spiritual level. Became a very deeply spiritual person. He wrote books on spirituality, as you probably know. And he wrote two
Mm-hmm.
books, and he didn't take money from them. He donated every penny of profit to charity. He only covered travel expenses. Like if
Awesome.
he had to travel someplace to do like a book signing or an interview, he covered his travel expenses. That was it. All the money was donated to charity from his books. And if you could find, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere is digital on Amazon. And then the other, or that was, no, was that his first book or second book? And the Sleeper Awakes Journey to Self-Awareness is in a hardback, but that's out of print. It did two printings. He's very proud about that, but it did print two printings, and it might be hard to find. Maybe one of these days I'll get it digital on Amazon.
Okay.
But but I want to say thank you, David, and I want to say thank you to you, and I want to say thank you to all the fans. Every once in a while people find me on Instagram at Erin Perry Sings, or they find me on Facebook, which I don't do very often. And I see things on YouTube, and as my mother, my father, excuse me, my mother, my brother, Freudian slip there, huh? Deeply touched when I see
Mm-hmm.
how fans remember him. I know darn well how darn good he was at his job. I know that. Oh,
Oh,
but as the daughter,
oh, yes.
I'm deeply touched that he is so well loved and remembered with such fondness. And that's really nice. So I thank you, and I thank all of his fans.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And thank you for doing this, sir.
Thank you. Have a good one. And hi to Jason. Bye.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, there's the first part of the first interview here of the night here tonight, and I hope you guys enjoyed that interview despite some technical difficulties, which my fault for not ending much of the interview right there, but it was still a great conversation overall. So let's go to the next interview, which will be on for the next hour and a half. Play by play by JJ. So, let's get started with that interview, Sally. Has the notes. Hello, everybody. I'm Demi here. Welcome to another interview here. Today, I'm here with JJ.
What's going on, Dave? How you doing?
Doing well. So,
Nice.
um, tell everybody about yourself and what you do here on YouTube.
Yeah. So, first of all, I gotta say, first of all, I met you through our man, Brian Snow. He's
Snowman,
definitely.
yes.
Oh yeah, he's the best. He does such an awesome job with this content, and I really like your content too. I have to put that out there, and I just
Oh,
want the
thanks.
listeners to know because I really do try to take the time to listen to everybody that has supported me because I always like wanted to give them the love and the support that they deserve. So you've been really killing it on here, and I respect your work ethic, man.
Thanks. I've been doing YouTube since 2019, and I just passed 1,000 subscribers a few weeks ago. I'm around 1K or 1,020 or something. I don't know, but
That's
um,
absolutely
I'm very
crazy.
happy. Yeah, the one thing I'm having a bit of an issue on is the views, but hopefully one day it'll get better. But it's all about the process, and it's all about doing it for fun as well. So,
Yeah, and
um,
it's funny that you say that because you were asking me before, and I didn't answer the question. I apologize about that. I just had to say that first, but like I think that what you said just ties into the question perfectly because what really got me started was just the fact that I wanted to just get more and more reps. Okay, so like every time I go to the batting cage, even though I'm only hitting like 40, 50 mile per hour pitches and my timing is a little bit off, right? I'm going to the cage and I'm there to get practice and I'm there to just get swings and to be able to get reps. And that's really what it comes down to. And so Scott Fransky, who's the radio announcer for the Philadelphia Phillies. I met him at a networking event at Rowan University last year. He basically said to me, like when I went to go talk to him at the very end of the event, he said,
mm,
"How many baseball games did you call per week with all due respect?" And I said, "One." And he said, "Well, once a week." I said, 1 to 2 times every 2 weeks. And he said, "Well, to be honest with you, it's not enough. I do 162 games a year or close to it. You got to get
yeah,
the reps. You have to get the reps." And so everything takes time. When you're working on biceps, you're not going to grow those biceps unless you keep working on it over time. And
you
it's
have
the
to get
same
used to
thing
it.
with anything. Right. Exactly. So I kind of just took that analogy and I took what Scott Fransky and others have told me said to heart because I realized that I have a passion and I have a direction and I have to take full advantage of that because some people don't know like what they want to do
Yeah,
and it takes them a while to figure out. I was just really blessed and really fortunate that I, have incredible parents who are highly supportive of what I do and they encourage me to do this. So I'm blessed in
mm,
that sense, but I have the drive because I have a goal in my mind, and that is to become a broadcaster, whether it's for, you know, YouTube or for on the internet or if it's in person. I
uh-huh,
just want to get like a big time gig, but the only way to do it is if you start from the bottom. And as Drake would
yeah,
say, we started from the bottom, but now we're here.
yeah, absolutely. So, you have done play-by-play for minor league baseball, like in the lower A class. How did you get into the play-by-play experience that you have gotten?
So it's funny that you asked that because I come from a theater background. I started
Mm,
doing theater when I was in fifth grade. But, and I bring that back because it was that experience of learning how to be a better public speaker. it was the experience of learning how to perform on stage and audition in front of a whole group of people, read lines, and go over blocking and that type of thing. And by the
Mhm.
time I was in 8th grade, I graduated from theater, from this theater camp that I was at. I got the lead when I was in 8th grade for the show that I was in, which was awesome. It's called Schoolhouse Rock. And then
Uh-huh.
by the time I was going into 9th grade, my mom was like, you should join a film program. So I got into that because I kind of wanted to go into the whole behind the scenes thing. And
Okay.
so that kind of sparked a plug, if you will, with getting interested in editing, filming your own content,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I still liked performing, but I didn't know if I wanted to be in acting, or if I just wanted to be behind the scenes or do a little bit of both. So then when I was in
Sure.
high school, I did a combination of things. I was working behind the scenes, helping out during theater shows, and I was also acting too. I was performing. But
For
throughout the
interesting.
whole time, right, exactly. But throughout the whole time, I had this whole passion for sports. And so it's funny because the stars kind of started to align when I was taking TV media my junior year of high school, because I loved helping out with special needs athletes and helping out different types of organizations, because I knew that I wasn't going to be a professional ball player, or I wasn't going to be doing sports professionally, but I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved the camaraderie, and I had a great experience of going to the World Series with my dad and just some awesome,
Wow.
cool moments. But it was just this
What World
passion
Series?
for, right, yeah, exactly. The
What
World
World
Series was
Series?
awesome. Oh, it was
What?
2008 and 2009 for the
Uh-huh.
Phillies.
When for the
So,
Phillies? Okay.
right. So, but no, like, just to tie it all back together in a knot, it was a combination of all of those things. And then I realized I didn't want to go into acting full time. And I went to school for broadcasting and for film. And I kind of wanted that combination of both. And I fell in love with the radio side of things. And it all
Yeah.
just made sense. I loved being on the air. I loved talking about sports. And that's where the whole passion came from. Just a combination of all those things and the family that I grew up with.
Awesome. And how did you became a Phillies? What else are you a fan of? Uh, the Patriots,
Yep.
the Flyers, and is there one more I'm forgetting?
Yep. The Sixers.
The
The Sixers.
Sixers. Okay.
Sixers.
How
Yes.
did you became a fan? How do you became a fan of those teams?
My love started for baseball. It was just that's how I got into sports. So I'll never forget when I want to say 10, or I was 8 years old. I was 8 years old when I first turned on my TV in my bedroom, and I wanted to watch Nickelodeon, right? And Nickelodeon on Comcast was channel 33. So if we go over one more channel, it's Comcast Sportsnet at the time, which is now NBC Sports. So
Mm-hmm.
I went past the channel and I'm trying to find Nickelodeon. And this guy is playing this sport. It's called baseball. Never even heard of it before, right? The Phillies
Yeah.
were playing, and there was this man that was up at the plate, and the second pitch, I believe it was, that I saw, he hits a home run. And I'm looking at the crowd reactions. I'm like, whoa, like this dude just knocked the ball that far and this crowd is going crazy. Like,
Yeah.
that's a little bizarre. That's a little
Mm-hmm.
cool, you know? So, and I saw that the score was changing, and that guy drew my eye to the sport. And so I'm like I was trying to find SpongeBob. And
Okay.
I become glued to the TV just by watching this guy. And then I'm
Who was
watching.
it?
I'll explain it to you in a second, because then it gets more interesting. So my mom calls me down to dinner, and of course I'm like, yeah, I'll be down in a second. and a second turns into 5 minutes. Okay. And I walk downstairs and I go into the living room, and my dad is sitting on the couch and he's laying down. Well, yeah, laying down. And he's watching the same thing I'm watching. And this guy, the same guy that's up at the plate, hits another one. I'm like,
Wow.
What the freak? And it just so happened it was Ryan Howard. And he won the MVP that year. And he hit 313. He had 58 homers. I think it was 146 RBI. But just by watching that, and just by listening to Harry Callis and the way that he was describing the game, I felt like I was there, and I felt like I was comfortable. And I loved watching the Phillies. And so from that point on, for 4 straight years, I really almost tried to never miss a Phillies game. And so that's how I got into the Phillies. And that's how it all started. And then basketball came along when I was in middle school. I played for a special needs basketball organization and helped out with them. They're called the Achad Squadron. Awesome experience. Helped them out when I was in high school too. And then football, that was a whole nother thing. You know, I got into that when I was a sophomore in high school. Somebody at a Jewish youth group event was like, Jason, we don't care what game is on. By the time you come, we know that you're going to be late because of rehearsal. We're going to sit you down in front of a couch, and you're going to love this sport because all you talk about is baseball, basketball, a little bit of hockey. Like, we have to get you into, like, the real deal. Okay. I was really quiet. But Aaron Hernandez was the one that really caught my eye, that game that I watched, because the game that was on after the Eagles game was the Patriots game. And
I was going to say, why are
came out. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, like, how come you're a Patriots fan, not an Eagles fan? You know, it's kind of strange.
So I didn't grow up watching the Eagles. Right. Exactly. I didn't grow up watching the Eagles. I mean, I don't hate the Eagles. I don't really hate any sort of team or anything like that. Like, when I say that, it's just all for fun and games. Like, I mean, like the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, like, come on. But like, I don't, I don't legitimately, hate those teams. They bug me. They annoy me. But, it's all for fun and games to me. And so, the Eagles, I don't hate the Eagles. I just did not grow up watching the Eagles. And I kind of got into football really late in my life, a little late in, high school. So, but yeah, that's how the passion began. And that's what kind of led to what is going on now.
So basically, the Tom Brady dynasty is why you're a Patriots fan.
Yeah, I wasn't even like a huge fan of Tom Brady, but now I realize now that maybe I took him for granted just a little bit, because I have noticed things have gone down differently since he hasn't been there. Did he have Randy Moss? For sure, he had Randy Moss. Did he have Gronkowski? Yes. Did he have Edelman? Did he have Amendola? Right? Like, he did have those pieces. Right. Exactly. And he had Bill Belichick, obviously, who was a really good defensive coach, right? Defensive minded. But at the same time, in the biggest moments when they needed a play, he came through almost every single time. So, the Patriots have never been able to get the tight end position correct, or even the wide receivers for the most part, or the quarterback, ever since Tom left. But that's been the biggest hole, is the QB position. So I was a fan of just the team that they built around, because I felt like it wasn't just Tom, but he played a big part in it. But the other side of the ball is just as important.
Yeah, because, he sometimes will struggle without Gronk.
Right. Exactly. So,
but he's still, no matter what, the greatest of all time, and he is my favorite football player of all time as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Good. And I remember, of how I got into football is basically the Super Bowls that he was in, and then I started to get into following it a little bit for the past couple of years.
Right.
After 2020, I started to watch more games here and there, and it's great. Um, so how did you get into the calling the Wilmington Blue Blocks, um, and the Delaware Coats?
Yep.
And I think that's all. I think that's all he did there. How did he were able to get? You know, what was your what experience helped you get there, calling the games for those teams in the minor league baseball, high A,
Yeah, so
and
I was
supporting
really
basketball?
fortunate. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did I cut you off? I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
no, no.
Oh,
I said minor league baseball and the basketball league affiliate.
right, right. So I learned throughout my entire journey from the rowing program that first of all, I was a radio TV film major when I was a freshman in college, and then it was all the way to my third year, and I started unfortunately struggling with school, but um, I was really lucky because they I found out that we were going to be having a new sports program and that it was going to be a
Mm,
minor. And I figured if this is going to be a minor, this is going to be a major within like the next year or so. And I was right. And I had a really bad GPA. I had a 1.8 GPA, cumulative, not just for a semester, like a cumulative GPA. And I
mm-hmm.
was really struggling. And I had my own stuff. I wasn't speaking up for myself, anything like that. By the time I graduated with a 3.3. But like the thing is that when they initially added this major, I knew that if it was going to take me another 2 years, this was going to be worth it. If it was a 4 year, and if I would have had to stay for 8, I wouldn't have done it. But for the extra
Yeah.
2 years, I did it. And so the timing of everything was so perfectly because I was getting more involved with the radio station when I wasn't doing well in school, because then I realized that I have to get more involved in certain things in order for me to make more friends in classes and speak up for myself and do homework. So I was doing that. And I also, just from the experiences I was getting by calling Rowan men's basketball games and women's basketball games and doing some baseball stuff, I
For
was
your
starting to
school?
kind of build. Yeah. For the school, I was getting some reps, at least some reps. So,
Okay.
um, so then it was during 2020. They added the program in 2019. I switched into the major, and I was so happy I did it because 2020, we all know what happened: shutdown, COVID, and all that
Yep.
sort of stuff. And I was doing some work for the Wilmington Blue Rocks because they had an intern. They had an intern that was there that was a producer that would have to do like all 140 games at the radio station,
How
and
were you,
they had that.
without the without the
Well,
140 games before you continue on? How were
right,
you
right, right.
able to? How were you able to make up time to watch your Phillies, the Sixers, etc.?
So I didn't do it for the 140 games because the
Okay.
last time that they had that, they decided, you know what, we're just going to have one person do 80, produce behind the board, have like somebody be the on-air host for the pregame and the postgame show every single time, and
Okay.
then just send it out to the announcers, like whether they were calling the game in Delaware or if they were on the road. So it was a lot of games, 120 games. So,
Yeah.
so they split it up 60-60 with two people. At one time, both of them couldn't do it. So they asked if anybody else could do it. And I said, absolutely. Like I would be interested in learning how to do it because I knew that I had to get my feet wet and I wanted to kind of grow more skills. So
Sir.
I was lucky. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I said sir.
Yeah. So I was really lucky because of the pandemic, the Wilmington Blue Rocks were not going to bring back the announcers and they had to lay off a lot of people. And it just so happened that we had a new director of our program. His name is Neil Hartman. And he partnered with the Wilmington Blue Rocks. And the Blue Rocks formed a partnership, and they wanted to give college students an experience to just call games. And it was the same thing for the Delaware Bluecoats, because the Bluecoats, they laid off a lot of people from the pandemic too, but they wanted to have they wanted to have college students come in and not only just call games, but be able to have other roles as well and be able to help out. So I was so fortunate because I did the Bluecoats thing first. My brother passed away in September of 2020, and I was supposed to have an internship that summer, and I did a remote internship. But I wanted to be able to just audition because I figured, what do I have to lose? And I studied so hard for that audition. I had my tapes and I had my notes with me and everything. And when I found out that I got it, I was so happy. And it was me and 3 other people. Shout out to Lloyd Wilson, shout out to Kayla Santiago and Aaron Hook, all of those people. We were sort of the pioneers. And it was nice to be able to do that. Plus, I was still doing stuff behind the board. And because I had that experience of doing that for the Wilmington Blue Rocks. So it was great that I got a chance to kind of get my fingers in so many different spots. And I think just because of the experiences that I had and just my drive, my passion, that it would lead up to that. And that's the same thing for the Blue Rocks too. I actually didn't even get it the first year I auditioned, but I was still involved with the studio stuff. And we were in like a 3-man rotation, and how we did games was going to be a lot different because, of how things were before. And so anyhow, we were doing that, and it was definitely a lot, but Lloyd and my man Nick Earnshaw and we definitely held the fort down. We were cutting highlights. We were recording the games and all of that. And I would even fill in for some people who couldn't even do color commentary. So, and then the next year I did a better job at my audition, but I was still calling games for Rowan Athletics. And I was still doing some stuff for the Rowan baseball team too. So then that helped get more reps, just enough reps for me to go into the audition feeling very prepared. And it was a cool experience. And I got to do that my senior year in the summer. And I called about 12 home games for play-by-play, I'd say, maybe a little bit less. It was like 8 or so. But that's how I got those experiences. And I've learned that in this field that you have to be a sponge. You have to be willing to do so many different types of things. And when you ask to help somebody just because you're a genuine person, it makes things so much easier. So I didn't look upon as, with opportunities of doing the microphones or playing foul ball music or handing out souvenirs and doing game promos and that type of thing. I didn't look at that as work. I just felt like I was volunteering and I was helping out and I was getting experience and exposure. So, and that really helped. And that's how my love for broadcasting really took off, just because I was really fortunate and I was getting one experience led to another. And I just kept trying to break down doors, and I didn't let anybody stop me. And that's the mindset that I still carry to this day.
So basically, you just wanted to get out there by doing whatever you can to get that internship, to get that experience.
At the end of the day, you can show somebody a resume, but the eye test is always going to win. And what I mean by that is if you're just a good person, if you're just doing those little things, if you're cleaning up, or if you're, trying to take advantage of certain opportunities where you feel like you can help out somebody within the organization, just like clean up trash or just, deliver papers to people or that type of thing. Those people are going to remember that. The first one in, last one out mentality. That's what really helps people go far in this business. You really just have to have the drive and the passion And no matter what you're doing, hiring companies are going to always love that because they
Yeah.
see you're not only just writing about it, you're actually physically showing them the type of person that you truly are and that you're a team player. That's why I always tell people, hey, if you need me to go play left field, coach, that's fine. I'll go play left field. There's no debate about it. Oh, you need me at left tackle today? That's fine. All right, I'll go play left tackle. And I'm going to do my best job to help my team win. Oh, you need me at quarterback? I have to be a leader and you need me to, you know, help out with promos and making sure that everything is all set and you need me to help out with the producers and communicate and run certain things. I can do that too. So you can't really say no to opportunities unless there is something that you just cannot pass on. And I think I finally found that with YouTube because it is really hard for me to even pass this thing up because I love what I'm doing every day.
Absolutely. Now, before I ask you about YouTube, um,
Yes.
with everything that you do for internship wise, how do you make up time to still follow the sports you love with baseball, basketball, football? Because you still gotta learn the players of the past years and everything, your research with while getting yourself out there to get the exposure for the experience. How are you still gonna make up time to watch your favorite teams?
It's tough. I mean, it's definitely a lot easier said than done. I feel really lucky right now because have I'm not living by myself. I am living with my parents, number one. But even when I was living at school, I felt like I was still I was still keeping up with my teams because that's my passion and that's in my heart and that's in my soul. So I wasn't
Yeah.
maybe during times when I was calling games or if I had to get ready to call a game, it wasn't like I was doing this every day, but I was
Hmm.
still doing other activities and I was still getting involved. But I felt like while I got busier, like over the years with the Blue Rocks and with the Blue Coats, by the time I was a senior and a junior in college, my fifth and my sixth years, I still felt like I was able to keep up with my teams because I was listening to them on the radio. I would commute and I would literally like go to school or I'd go to Delaware and I do it every
Yeah.
day. And then I would, hang out with my brothers in my fraternity that I was in. And they were like a brotherhood to me and they welcomed me in with open arms and they allowed me to stay over if I needed them to, or if I needed to. They were so great during that time of school when I was starting to make that transition from just having poor performances in the classroom to just finding my groove, coming back as a part-time student and then trying to do better in my classes. Because I was getting more involved, sometimes I would tell my parents, listen, I can't come home tonight because I have a lot of work to do. And then I'm going to, sleep over at the brother's house. And they'd be like, that's totally fine. As long as you're
Yeah.
doing what you have to do. So I think that just that during that whole transition, I was working, but I was having fun too. And I was starting to open up to more people. And I would still see just from people in the sports department or just from listening to the radio, how the Phillies were doing, how the Patriots were doing. So it was actually
Okay.
in some ways easier for me to keep up with things because I was working in sports and because also my classes were all sports related. So these things would just come up in conversations. So,
Yeah.
I felt like it was actually definitely easier for me to keep up with it, even though, yeah, I wasn't having as much time, as much free time doing things, but people would always be like, hey, like, the Phillies are on now. And sometimes during our downtime, if I was producing, like I'd have the game on just as background noise. And then if I had to go change the board to, switch the faders and if we're going to a break, of course you got to keep your ears out on that. But I would have the TV
Yeah.
on too.
Okay. So basically, while you go to the radio news and everything just to keep up with everything, similar with internet as well.
Right.
Um, So how did YouTube start for you with you calling the games on YouTube?
It's funny because by the time I graduated, I was, it was last year during the spring, and I was really nervous because I was still doing Blue Rocks games over the summer, and I finished out the Rowan baseball season. I got to travel with them, but I needed something next because the question was always, what's next?
Yeah.
So I said, why don't I just apply to go to NFL Films? And I did. And I applied to some other jobs too. And I saw somebody that I'm like really good friends with, and he told me that I should apply. He met up with me for dinner, and I had no idea he had the same position that I was going to have. And it kind of just like motivated me to do that. And of course, connections go a long way too. Just
Yeah.
so happened that, one of the producers was somebody that I helped out with for one of the special needs baseball groups that I was a part of. And he's a family friend of mine. Shout out to Todd Schmidt. He's an
Wow.
absolutely incredible person. So that connection also really helped, but it was also the work that I was doing at the same time, building that stuff up. So I figured, okay, I'm getting more experience doing certain things. There has to be a way that I can try to, get in. And fortunately I did. And I was really lucky because I remember at the networking events that I went to, one of them was for NFL Films. And they told me that it's harder to even get into to Harvard than it is to NFL Films because they just get so many applicants every year. So I got into films and I started working and I do my internship and I loved it. Don't get me wrong. But after the first week I was there, the baseball season came to an end for minor league baseball. And 2 months go by and I said to myself, this is great. Don't get me wrong. But something's missing. Something's not there. And so that's when I met Scott Fransky, and I was still going to the networking events at Rowan. I was still meeting people at Pizza with the Pros every Monday, professionals that were in the field, because you never stop networking. So he was there right after the World Series run happened. And when he said to me that you have to get reps, I said to myself, there's a way I can make this work. And that's when I was reaching out to minor league teams. I was reaching out to agencies, and they were all telling me, no, 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 no. And people were still reaching back out to me because I would send like 50 emails a week, like no joke. So I said, I can reach out to people, but in order for me to really get better, I have to hone in on my craft. I have to just do it. And I just thought, you know what, Jason, you have a laptop in front of you. You have a web camera. You have this beautiful piece of audio equipment called a Rodecaster. You just got to, the keys are in the ignition. You just got to drive it.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started just doing basketball games in December. My first game that I did was the Warriors-Sixers game. And when I was doing it more and more, like I didn't want to do hockey and basketball at the same time. So I figured, okay, we'll just do one and we'll do the Sixers because they're playing really well. Flyers are a whole nother discussion. But anyhow, the Sixers were doing well, and I'll just finish out the football season. So then I started doing basketball, and I was starting to do more games on this channel while I was interning at NFL Films, and it all worked out great. So, and I knew that if I wanted to continue doing this, it was the right time because I was at NFL Films. And so after I was done at Films, I felt like I was ready to do this more full time. So I was going to wait out till the basketball season was done. I wasn't even just going to get into hockey. I wasn't going to jump in really late. And by the time baseball started, boom, I felt like I could do more and more because I was getting those reps. I was building that stamina. But everything just fell into place. Nothing happened overnight. I'm still constantly changing things with my cast every day, but I feel more confident every time I put the headset on, and I would never get the amount of reps that I'm doing as of right now if I was at Rowan. And Rowan was a great experience, and I loved what I did calling minor league baseball games and Delaware Blue
Yeah.
Coats games, and I would never, ever trade that away. But it set me up for this. And every time I'm done with the cast now, I'm just like, I feel good. Like, I want to do another one
Mhm.
for the most part.
Yeah.
So,
So basically, the reason why you quit those minor league, is because you wanted to get better and practice more for something next, because you said
well,
something was missing.
well, unfortunately, like by the time I graduated, because they were both partnered with Rowan, I said, all right, we're just going to finish out the season, and that's just going to be it. And
Okay.
obviously, Rowan, was like, yeah, like that's definitely like the right move because, we can't hold on to you forever either. So sometimes you
Yeah,
got to
that's true.
spread your wings and you got to fly. And of course, I was still looking for freelancing opportunities, but I was always told that like once you're done at Rowan, like, everything that you did was what you did, but take
Yeah.
advantage of what you can before you graduate and before you do those types of things. So if I would have been able to do it, I don't know if I would have, because I would have felt like, I'm done with school and I want to help
Yeah.
give other people those opportunities because I had those opportunities while I was in school. That's the unselfish part of me. So I
Yeah.
felt like it was also kind of time for me to move on too.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely. Um. So, how do you study before you call your games here on YouTube? And this is your first year calling the games on YouTube right here in 2023
right.
for
Yes.
baseball.
So oh yes, for sure. I mean, I was doing softball games and baseball stuff too, but now I
Hmm.
think I have a really good routine and I'm still adding stuff to my routine. But the one thing that I do, I used to always make spotting boards. And to be honest, I don't always do that now because when you're doing it, when you're calling a game for just a local team or somebody that you're just calling games for, there's not really like too much that goes
Yeah.
into studying for their team. I mean, you still like should write down notes and stuff, and I print out a lot of papers, even though I don't have the messy desk syndrome. But I remember things too. I don't have the best photographic memory like Merrill Reese or any of those
Yeah.
types of guys, but I still keep score. And here's like a perfect example. So like for today's game, I don't know if you
Oh,
guys can
screen
see it.
screen.
I don't know if you can see
Okay.
it right now. Um, there we go. So I have like Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot and
You may
that type
want
of
to
thing.
change your background. I can't
All right, let me
see
do
it that
that.
well.
Um, let me get rid of the virtual background. My room is just such a mess, so but I'll
Yeah.
get rid of it really quickly. But anyhow, that's what I was doing. So, I would have my stats right here, the lineups and everything. Oh wait, this way. This way. There we
Okay.
go. And so here's the players. Here are the different types of categories, like the stats and all that sort of stuff of what they did. And so
Yeah.
it was just kind of nice because I was able to follow along and I'm able to, pin down points and remember what happens as the game goes on. Like Starling
Yeah.
Marte today. Oh, he hit a solo homer in the first inning. When did he hit a solo homer? Like I write it all down. And
Yeah.
so just those types of things for organization purposes, they help me. And I also, the other thing too that I've been doing is I've actually, and as crazy as this sounds, I've been going on to the different websites that are out there for sports betting because now they
Mm.
put down a lot of stats of like how people do against pitchers and they give you more background. And so, of course, I quote those people, and I try to,
Yeah.
do my research and I read still and I do those things. But I'm always trying to keep up with the news of what's going on in the sport. And I'm always trying to get storylines. And I even listen to Odyssey for WIP, because that's who does like the radio side for the Phillies, and I try to listen to their pregame and their postgame shows the day after every
Yeah.
single game. And then sometimes I'll even record the stuff on NBC Sports because they're all talking about the same thing. So if there's a way that I can get information from certain people, okay, I'm not at the batting cage. Okay, I'm not at the press conferences, right? I'm
Yeah.
inside my house. I'm inside my room,
Yes.
and I'm just doing it from here. But I'm constantly listening. I'm constantly learning. And I feel like that routine has really helped me because that's how I feel like that it should be. You just have to get the reps. But the prep work, I could always do more prep work, but it's just not how it always works.
So do you have any advice for someone that wants to do like to start fresh for a play-by-play call? Like, do you have any advice for that?
My biggest advice is obviously get the reps. Don't let anybody tell you no. And number one, never stop networking and believe in yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you don't believe in what you're doing, nobody else will. So you need to
Absolutely.
always stay true to yourself. And some days it gets really, really hard, even for me
Yeah.
at times. But I know that this is my passion and this is what I want to do. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help me and even try to help others too, because I really do care about good people in this world and people that help me. I'm always willing to lend them a hand too, but you have to be willing to just do whatever it takes for you to get there. But you also have to be cognizant of your financial situations and do something in the best interest for you. You don't want to put yourself in a position to fail unless you fully want to take a gamble. So, that's why the YouTube thing has been great for me, because I'm not necessarily traveling to the middle of nowhere and I'm calling games for like the Iowa Cubs. And that's a great experience, and yes, like you're moving to a smaller market and you're getting more reps, but I'm getting a lot of reps just by calling games on here too. And I'm building a following. It's different. And obviously, like, it's a good experience, but it just wouldn't have worked for me because of my financial situation and because of, my disabilities and that type of thing. So it's been working out really well just by doing this, but don't be afraid to make sacrifices and always be willing to listen to people, take advice, and just put in the work. Don't let anybody tell you no. I will say one more thing. I was somebody that really tried to feed off of people saying, no, you can't do this. And I'll never forget somebody when I was doing really bad in school and there were talks, with me and my advisor and my family. Somebody told me when I was stepping into that building to talk to my advisor that I was never going to succeed. And I wanted to prove that person wrong because I wanted to show them you were wrong about me. And in the moment I was mad, but 2 years later I said, I needed that because that gave me motivation. And
100%.
That's what happens. You have to be willing. You have to fail in order for you to succeed, but you have to have experiences. And I think that's pretty much those things that I said are probably the best advice I could give you. Just never stop.
Never stop, indeed. Oh, Dodgers just took the lead. Wow.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're totally fine. Wow. That's crazy.
But like what I'm doing right now, listening to the game on the monitor here, computer. Do you listen to the game while you're doing your play-by-play with your headphones? Because that way you won't get bored.
Sometimes
just like
when
the crowd.
Sometimes, most of the time when I'm doing it now, like I'm used to not having crowd noise because I was really fortunate and I was able to do that obviously when I was doing games during the pandemic.
Okay.
And calling Delaware Blue Coats games. Like, yes, we did eventually have crowd noise tuned into our ears, but
Yeah.
I'm just used to the whole crowd factor. It definitely plays a part, but I've been doing theater for a long time, and sometimes I know that people aren't going to cheer as loud or people are going to be silent. And so
Yeah.
I'm used to just that sort of performance aspect of everything, plus the improvisation, because you obviously never know what's going to happen in sports and you never know
Yeah.
how the call is going to be and that type of thing. So I really just attribute my theater experiences to that. But so I don't necessarily have to always have the crowd noise on, like when I'm calling a game, because I feel
Yeah.
it in me and I can picture it in my head and I can feel it.
Yeah.
So
100%. Um, would you ever one day want to get back into calling minor league baseball or any other minor league sport?
absolutely. I mean, if the experience is definitely right, I would totally be willing to do it. The thing is that I feel like I'm at a point right now where it's so good to try new things, but I feel like with what I have going on with YouTube right now, it's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
going to take
growing.
like a lot because I feel like I'm building my own brand and I'm not
Yeah.
like working for anybody else. And of course, like there's so many good things about doing it, obviously, but I really do feel like that I'm getting more reps and I'm also like people are starting to see if I ever sent them a demo of something that because you hear Kyle Schwarber, right? Because you hear the household names,
Yeah.
hiring companies actually really like that. And when you
Mm.
tune in, like when you put in the crowd noise and when you're editing videos, because you have those moments, it actually
Yeah.
helps you in that sense. So so to basically answer your question, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. As long as the situation is right for me. I just really feel like right now I have such a great thing going on with YouTube, but I would totally be willing to do whatever it is if the situation is right and if the opportunity is the correct one for sure. But
Yes.
I'm gonna have a hard time, if I'm not gonna give this thing up because I really feel like I've developed a family on here, and so many people have already commented and emailed me and have told me that that they love to listen to me, and some people have still given me some awesome feedback of what I could be doing better. And I just feel like this is a portfolio that I'm putting together of what I'm capable of.
Yeah. Um,
I
my
hope that
next
that makes
question.
sense.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Um, so, um, my next question is, how did you meet Snowman, or how did he meet you?
So he met me, and
Okay.
I was calling games, obviously, on my channel. The one thing that I really tried to do from the very beginning was I knew that I was going to have some type of equipment. And
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to have to learn how to market myself because I didn't just want to, because I was smart and I figured out for myself that in order for me to really grow, I have to do the reps for sure. And the algorithm would pick that up and more people would pick that up, the more times I'm doing it. But I
Mhm.
also needed to learn how to market myself. And so
Mhm.
when I was coming up with different tags, when I was posting on social media, right, when I made my Facebook page and that type of thing, it all happened organically. Some things I did have to take certain days off just to, work on uh, production type of stuff or marketing type of stuff too. But
Yeah.
but everything that I was doing from the marketing side of things, and while still maybe not putting in as much work to the content as I should have been, But because I was marketing myself a lot at the very beginning, it helped me because now I have a foundation and I have an order that I do things, and it's actually helping me focus now on just coming up with the content more. And I'm studying
Mm-hmm.
more and I'm doing more things. And so Snowman found me at the time where I wasn't, I wasn't playing around as much with things. I had a system going. And of course I was
Okay.
adding stuff, and I still do add stuff to my system, but he found me, I think, because of the work I was putting in and because of the keywords and the marketing strategies and stuff that I was doing. And he just so happened to find me one day just because he was searching for broadcasters, and he saw me and he's like, yeah, this guy's cool. And Snowman and I, hit it off. Like, right after that, I tuned into a show. I learned a lot about him, and our friendship and our brotherhood really started because of that. And he made me realize, and I had no idea how far this was going to go, but the networking on YouTube is awesome. And
Yes.
if you use it correctly, what I try to do sometimes now is I'll literally filter through things. If I type in Phillies, I'll press some of the filters and I'll just go to see who's live right now. And I just
Yeah.
comment and I get involved with people's comments and I subscribe to people's channels because I want to build relationships with people, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a genuine person. Am I trying to grow my channel? Of course. But I'm
Yeah.
just, a really friendly person, and I love people. And I don't really have much of that right now. I still have my family, but ever since, unfortunately, my brother passed away, like all the nurses and the people that would come over to the house, I don't see them anymore. And I'm not
Yeah.
getting out of the house. So I need socialization. And he taught me about how to network with people on YouTube. And it's funny because I feel like I've taught him. He says to me all the time that I see how you do play by play and how much you believe that this is the future of doing it. And when he had me on his cast, I'll never forget, he said, "This is the internet broadcaster of the Phillies." And I'm like, that's how it's going to be. Like, I truly do believe that what we're doing at Play by Play with JJ, and I'm not just saying this, I fully believe this in my heart, that this is eventually how the sports broadcasting industry is going to be. Maybe I'm not doing this from my home, and I'm still doing it at the stadium, but I'm interacting with listeners. People are like, JJ, you need color commentators. Why can't you guys who are in the audience, why can't you be a part of the story too? If I can interact with people that are in the audience when I'm doing a show for theater, and the audience can be a part of the story, why can't you guys be a part of the story? And that's how
Yeah.
I feel like that if this is working correctly, which I think it really is, I do really feel like that's how the future is going to be, because companies are going to pick that up and they're going to see that, hey, this guy has a really good following. This guy can connect with viewers. And maybe we don't always need to have somebody that does color that's professional. Like maybe
Yeah.
we want to save some money and maybe this is the route that we want to go. So to tie this all back together in a bow, Snowman found that out about me, and we just hit things off right away. And we really have just been really close. He's had me on his show a couple of times, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just such an awesome man. I hope I didn't get too off topic.
No, it's good. What advice of the YouTube network that he gave you?
Never stop. And once
Mm.
things are getting really tough, you're doing this because this puts a smile on your face every day. Always remember that.
Yeah.
Don't let people pressure you. Don't let people stop you, because some days are going to be really tough, really hard. And
Absolutely.
some days you're not going to want to come on. But
Yeah.
you have to remember that this is what makes you smile. And if you don't do
100%.
it, you're making a huge mistake. And when I had that
Absolutely.
talk with him, I knew he was right. And it's
Yep.
great because I've always learned to learn from, people that have been in the business for a while so that I don't make similar mistakes, or that I just get more information from people. And everything that he said, just from his experiences, it helped because, he might be older than me, but he has experience, and he's
Yeah.
still learning about the game, and he never stopped learning.
Oh
So
yeah.
I really feel like that, just that conversation that I had with him when I wasn't feeling so well, and he said, if you really believe in yourself, which I know you do, and I can see you smile, that's not just a fake smile, that's a genuine smile. You're in the right
Yep.
spot, and you can't pass up on this.
Absolutely. What sport you think is the hardest to get into for play?
As far as the big four sports go, the hardest one, I think, for me is football, because, and this is the curse about it, baseball is every day, and there's
Yeah.
161 games. So there are 162 games in the season.
162.
So,
Yep.
right. So because it's every day and because it's so repetitive, if you make a mistake the one night, you have a chance to redeem yourself the next day. And just the
Oh yes.
consistency of the players, right? Like,
Yeah.
the players play every single day. So it becomes more of a custom to what you're doing. With basketball, it's 3 times a week. The rosters are smaller, right? They're not as big as
Yeah.
baseball is, but the rosters are smaller, and the game itself is it's pretty much a very simple concept. It is. But yes, basketball has its own things too. Of course, you
Hmm.
have to learn how to talk really fast. And for
Oh
radio,
yeah.
you got to be very descriptive. And this is like
Very.
radio because not many people can see what they're doing. Some people are driving. Some people like just are watching the game, and yes, they have the TV on, but they're they're just tuning into you, but you have to appease all audiences. So I feel like the toughest, and hockey, it's the same thing because it's like almost 3 to 4 times a week, even though the rosters are bigger and the lines change all the time. It has its own stuff, but just that repetitiveness of coming on like every other day or every 2 days, you have it more of a
Hmm.
chance to redeem yourself. And with football, it's so hard because the roster sizes are bigger. That's number one. Number two, you only get 16 weeks to do this. And that's if your team even makes it to the playoffs. And
Yeah.
when you're trying to even just get better as a caster, just finding radio stuff, it's not so easy for football because everything goes on at the same time for the most part. And
Oh
if you
yeah.
want to hear like local people, you're not really going to hear that while your team is playing unless you're playing on a primetime game. So
Hmm.
it's it's tough in that aspect because you got to study more of the players, and you get a week to
Absolutely.
prepare, and there's a lot of rules to football as well. Okay.
A
And
bunch.
right. So I just feel like that is probably the hardest one to do. And also just to figure out like when the color analyst should come in if you have a color analyst. And when you're even watching the game in person, you got to have the binoculars on you, because if you don't have a spotter, you're doing 3 things at once. So
Yeah.
I just feel like that football is probably the hardest in that aspect because the roster sizes are bigger, because it's only once a week. You have to learn everybody's name. You have to know the backups of the backups. And you really have to just hone in on what's important and how you can describe the action. And you don't get a chance to redeem yourself the next day. You have to wait a week.
Yeah.
So it's just harder to get reps with football.
And what about for hockey?
Hockey, Hockey, you got to get reps with that too. And hockey for radio is not so easy because with TV, you can see more things and you don't have to let the play-by-play do as much of the description. They say that when it comes to TV, just in general with any sport, the most important person on a broadcasting team is the graphics operator because you have to have the score bugs up, right? You can have a game on mute. You got to have the score bugs on, and you have to be able to, show the graphics of who is in the starting lineups and that type of thing. But then the second most important person is the director who calls, or the TD, the person that calls the shots, because the shots tell a story too. Third person, the color analyst, because everybody can see what's going on, so they don't always need much of a play-by-play description. So, and then fourth, well, really fifth, it's the play-by-play announcer. Fourth, I would say is probably the, I said graphic design. I lost my train of
color.
Right. The camera operators, I would say. So, and then fifth would have to be the play-by-play announcer. But then for radio, you don't have a camera operator, you don't have a graphics person because you can't see, so you're blind. So number one has to be the play-by-play announcer, and that's exactly why a radio play-by-play call is so different than a TV call, because you're constantly talking on the radio, and you can't have dead air. Okay, well, where's this person shooting from? This person's shooting from the slot, right? You don't always have to say that on TV, but the more descriptive you are, is he on the near side, right? Center circle, blue line, those types of things really matter for radio. Those descriptors. And you have to have those things in your bag because no one can see what's going on. Okay, was that 3-point shot from the near corner or the far corner? Was that
they can tell by the radio.
Right, exactly. Was it a back slap into the net, or like what type of a shot was it? Right? Like where was the netminder? Was it an empty net? Because no one can see. So you have to be willing to be a guiding light. You're a navigator. And that's why hockey is so hard. Plus you're talking so fast and the lines are changing. So you have to, no one can see the lines are changing. So you have to be able to do this on the fly. There's no stoppage. So it's hard. Hockey on the radio is really tough too. I just think that it's probably easier than football because it's more of a day, it's 3 to 4 times a week, but you do have to keep your voice in good condition for sure, because that is the hard part about it. But it's definitely quite a workout, but I still feel like football's the hardest in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think the, basketball is like the most smallest roster, or hockey, or is it both?
I would say it's basketball for sure, because
I
unless
think
it's
it's really
blowout,
easy.
right?
I think it's really easy. I think it's really easy to get into basketball with the small of the roster.
Yeah, and it's not even just that. It's also just because there are stoppages in play, and when substitutions do occur, they're during timeouts and they're during foul shots and that type of thing. Yes, the roster sizes are smaller, and yes, if it's a blowout, right, you're going to have more people are going to be coming in, like the third strings and the fourth strings and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But not during a close game. And with hockey, the lines are always changing. It's not just the first line. You got the second line of people that come in for like an extended period of time. And the other thing too is that even though basketball can be very fast paced, the game does slow down a little bit. Hockey does not slow down. It picks up. It's constantly going. So you have to be willing to figure out, okay, well, when will the momentum slow down maybe just a little bit? You don't know. And then that's why you have to, peak your voice a little bit if a shot goes up, because you don't know if it's going to go in. So you got to be really quick, and you kind of have to talk like you're an auctioneer or somebody that's running an auction. And that takes a lot of practice. And I still struggle with that to this day. But long story short, hockey has its own sort of deficiencies too, because you have to be very quick. And if you're saying something that's wrong, it still has to be quick. You can't just like stumble and you can't stop. You have to keep going. And
Yeah.
with baseball, because the pace is so much slower, you have a chance. So that's how I feel when it comes to hockey.
Yeah. What is your all-time favorite player for each sport?
For each sport, my all-time favorite player, it's hard. I grew up. I'll tell you my favorite players that I watched. I would
Okay.
say that my favorite player for the Phillies that I watched was Ryan Howard.
Yeah.
I would say that for football, my favorite player is probably Rob Gronkowski, person that I saw as a tight end. I liked Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. I like Tom Brady. I think in some ways he may be a little bit overrated, but I understand that the 6 championships and the 6 Super Bowls in the dynasty obviously are going to always weigh in on things. And then for hockey, I would say that my favorite player to watch, just based on skill level, and a lot of people don't like it when I say this, it's Sid. Sidney Crosby is the greatest hockey player I've ever seen. And the reason why is because he can do so much on both ends of the ice, right? He could literally be a blue lineman, and just get back on defense. And the way that he skates from defense to offense, it's like nothing I've ever seen. The stick moves are great. Even at his age right now, he still is a top 10 player in the NHL, without a doubt. And the greatness that he's had, just the overall greatness, it's just such an incredible thing to watch. Is he annoying for Flyers fans? Yes, when he was really young, of course, like he would give it to the Flyers, but his play always backed things up. And when you just look at him as a player and you see what he did off the ice and you see what he's done on the ice and how much of an impact he helped with Kessel, right? And with all these other guys that he's had throughout his career, Jacob Gensel and those guys, they're not the Pittsburgh Penguins without Sidney Crosby. There's just no way, because he is the leader of that team. He's the head of that snake. And I have to acknowledge that he is the greatest hockey player I've ever saw. And then as far as basketball goes, my favorite basketball player that I've seen, LeBron James is up there. I feel like he is an all-time great, and a lot of people would say him, that grew up with me. But if I wanted to pick somebody else, I would also have to say, I would have to say Joel Embiid, and I am being biased. But I've never seen a big man have the skill set that he has defensively and offensively on both sides of the court. Even though I'm still a little bit mad at how he performed in the last playoff series, but just overall talent-wise, I've never seen a big man do the things that he can do. Shaq can never shoot a three, right, and still play elite defense at the same time. The game has changed. Don't get me wrong. I feel like if Shaq had to shoot threes, he probably would have made them, and he would have worked on this game more. But Joel is just such a great shooter, and he can attack you at the rim, and he can just give it to you in so many different ways. He's gotten a lot better at passing out of the double teams, and he's gotten a lot better as the defensive anchor of the team. So he has a lot of impact, and I feel like he is my favorite basketball player.
All right. What other?
Answer was long.
It's good. What other hobbies do you like other than sports? You like video games, game shows, or movies? What else do you like?
Yeah, I'm a big music fan. I love music, and I feel like music really heals the soul a lot of times. And sometimes if I ever need a break from sports, which does happen quite a lot at times, more times than you would think, I do go to music. I do also go to podcasts, but music tends to be such a a big thing in regards to just mental health, and
Yeah.
I find it very therapeutic. And I can listen to rock, I can listen to classic rock, I can listen to a little bit of country, I can listen to pop. Like I'm into almost everything because I just like in sports, I respect
Hmm.
greatness. And if you're a very good songwriter, right, if you put your heart and your soul into it, and if you can come up with different types of things, or if I even pick up on things like the bagpipes or different types of instruments that are being played throughout a song, I respect that
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work and it's a skill, it's a talent, it's very unique, and it's a form of art that can help us make us feel good and make us feel connected to one another. And I can see that certain people in the music industry, how they can, do that and develop certain fan bases and have conversations and different types of connections with people because it's like sports too, you know?
Hmm.
So I love music. I haven't really been watching too many TV shows as of lately, but I do love Black Mirror. It's one of my favorite shows. I don't know why, but it just is. I like sci-fi stuff. And the other thing I love doing is spending time with my dog. I
Yeah.
do. I love spending time with my family and my dog whenever I get the chance. And I know over the years it's going to get even more busy
Yeah.
because this thing is not a 9 to 5 job.
Oh
But
yeah.
at the same time, I love spending time with my loved ones. Those are my
Absolutely.
hobbies.
Are you a general game show fan or video game fan?
Not really. I mean, I do listen to some podcasts on here and some casts
Okay.
like in general that do have to do with like the MLB the show or other types of video games, but it's just background noise to me. Like
Okay.
I do like certain game shows, but I'm not really a diehard fan of game shows, but I
Hmm.
like having them on sometimes. Just I just never really got into them when I was young, even though
Yeah.
my grandma liked Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And she liked
Okay.
Jeopardy. And that's how she always kept up with the times, and that's how she kept up with being really smart and keeping her brain active. And I do
Oh
like
yeah.
those certain things too, but I'm not somebody that has to watch it like all the time or every day.
Oh yeah. It'll get out of hand once in a while.
Right.
Um.
Exactly. How about
So
you?
what is? Oh, for me, I do like Dear No Deal is my all-time favorite game. So I watch that when I can, and you know,
Nice.
Price is Right and This Big Deal. I don't have the chance to watch them because I'm not home during the time, but I do like those shows as well. So those are my
Right.
I like pretty much all game shows. And on
Oh,
my Discord server, I actually have people play game shows on my YouTube channel. So
oh, that's so nice. That's
yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah,
That's what it comes down to, man. Just building a connection with people and trying to find things that get people to be happy that you can share with one
yes,
another. And I feel like that is just such an underrated feature that some people don't take advantage of when it comes to not even just being on YouTube. It's just about being a good human being. Like I just love
yeah,
having conversations with people about different things, and wherever the conversation goes, it goes. But it ties back to one thing. It ties back to our nature and just who we are as
yeah,
humans.
yeah. It's all about being with great friends and great people to families. Just great person in general. Um. So what is your next step? You're doing play by play right now. What do you have planned for like the next step in your life? If you're gonna get a new job, or what is your plan?
My plan right now is to keep pursuing this, but still
Okay.
look at opportunities too, and try to find things for part-time stuff that won't always interfere with this, because
Yeah.
I understand that I'm not making a dime off of what I'm doing now, and honestly, I love it. Like, I don't. Do I eventually like want to do it? Like, of course, like money is like always going to be like a thing that's tied into this, but that's for any career. Like
Yeah.
the goal is to like do like what you love, for a living, of
Yeah.
course. But I understand that obviously I do have to do stuff that's financially like best for me too. So I do have to find certain gigs, and I still have to like look for freelancing opportunities and try
Oh
to
yeah.
keep a little bit of an open mind, because I have to do something besides
Yeah.
just doing this. But I also understand that this is something that not a lot of people have done before, with taking a classic traditional broadcasting style approach and being able to just do it on YouTube and have people follow you calling your favorite teams. Like, that really hasn't been done. I see people
Yeah.
on here having parties, like watch parties and that type of stuff, and they treat it like it's a Peyton and
Yeah.
Eli cast. And like, no disrespect to that, because like those things are really cool too. But some people, they'll also like do play by play for like their home team, and they're just homers. Like, they don't really talk too much about the away teams or their opponent that's in the rink and that type of thing. It's just all bias. I can show
Yeah.
some bias at times, but at the same time, I understand that I'm basically for Philadelphia fans, but I still like to include the other side of things like a traditional broadcaster should.
Yeah.
But long story short, I want to continue to go down this path because I see that a lot of people that have graduated with me, they're trying to work their way up the ladder too. But I feel like in some ways, like, they have really great experiences. They're working for people, they're
Yeah.
networking and that type of thing. I'm still networking too, but it's just different. I do feel
Yeah.
like though that I'm getting more and more reps by doing this, and that is what's making me better. And that's the whole point of taking that minor league job. That's the whole point of moving to another location, because you're getting the reps. And so I've realized that this is sort of my quote unquote sacrifice, because I'm not really making any money off of it, but I'm not even traveling to the ballpark. I'm not even going out to
Yeah.
high school games. And yeah, I'm still freelancing, and I'm still, trying to pick up gigs like here and there for not just broadcasting, but for doing camera work and for other types of things and volunteer. But this is what I do. And this is the best experience that I can get for myself right now. And
Mhm.
I can literally just do it from my home. So as far as the plans go for the future, I want to continue to build my brand. I want to get
Yeah.
more people to come on and join the family, and I want to just grow this channel, because I feel like we have something really cool in the making. And I look at guys like Hunter Brody at Sports Talk with Broads and what he did for 4 years at Broads Media, and now he's on the air at 97.5 The Fanatic. He was at 97.3 ESPN. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if he can do it for just sports talk, and I still do some sports talk too. I have my Philly series recap pods that I do, and some Sixers podcasts as well. But if he could do it for just sports talk, period, why can't I do this for play-by-play broadcasting? Yes, like, there's not as many openings, but why not?
Yeah. Why
So,
not you?
right.
So what? Actually, before I ask you about YouTube, what was your NFL film schedule experience was like?
So I was on an A and B block schedule, as I like to call it. Um, when I was on my A schedule, I was doing Good Morning Football every morning, and I would be there from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I would do 8 hours Monday through Friday, and I would do that. If I was not doing Good Morning Football, and I was on my B block schedule, I was there from 9 to 5. So my schedule would just change from every week, like going from 1 to, from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. would be 1 week. And then I go to the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And when I was doing Good Morning Football is filmed out at SNY Studios, in New York. But the control room and the audio people and people that were in EVS and the production crew, period, were all in New Jersey. So I got a chance to see what goes on for live television almost every single day. And that was really cool. And how producers talk to talent and, what goes on in the control room with teleprompter, with graphics, and even just being in audio. And I loved being in audio. And I liked being in the control room too, like being like where the action is and that type of thing, even though everything was all remote. It was still really good to be able to see how people would literally put a live show together. And so that's what I would do. And then after that was done, I would have like 2 hours and I would try to help out like on the stage, or I would take like audio courses to help me, try to figure out how to get better with audio and how to grow a little bit. And I would also still network with people. And then on the 9 to 5 stuff every other week, I would be there from Tuesday to Friday from 9 to 5. And then on Sunday, I would do Game Day Live that was produced by NFL Network. And we would go on like at 2:30, just so that we could relieve the LA crew for their lunch break. So, so like we were doing highlights, and I got a chance to be a broadcast associate, which was really cool for 1 week. And it was just really nice to be able to have that experience too. And when I was doing the 9 to 5, sometimes I'd be there for shoots, and sometimes there would be other things going on that I would help out with. And I even just tried to network with people, even when things were light during the week. I would stop by people's offices. I would work on stuff for my channel, because I knew that the most important thing was just the whole program itself. The whole point of it was just to network with people and just figure out what you want to do in the sports world. That's all it was. So I got some great experience doing enhanced audio for the Jets game, and that was really nice. I got to shadow people and figure out like how they mic certain players, and that was a really awesome experience. And I just met some really awesome, talented people that were behind the scenes, and people that were even on the stage too, or on the set as well. Jib operators, producers, lighting directors and that type of thing. And, even though
very talented.
Right, exactly. So that's the experience that I took away from NFL Films. And it taught me a lot about how this really does take a team of people. And you have to realize that the more stuff you know how to do, this is why it's the better, because companies want to save money. And if they can see that somebody can do 2 to 3 things really well, they're not going to want to pay another position for it, Yeah. So it is.
Haven't met any other announcers or sport players?
Yeah, I met Charles Barkley. I went to an event a couple of years ago at Rowan, and he was there, and he was really nice. I got to ask him the last question at the Rowan networking event that I was at. Brian Dawkins, another one that I got to meet at another networking event. When I went to Sneaker Ball, and I got to see, that was a really cool thing. Rodney McLeod and Erica McLeod got to put together these annual Sneaker Ball events where people would come in and they donate sneakers and school supplies to Philadelphia. And that was really cool. I got to meet Jordan Mailata, and this guy walks up to me. I was looking at my phone. I'll tell you a story. This guy walks up to me. I'm looking at my phone, and I'm trying to figure out where my friend is, the person that brought me here. And I'm looking at my phone, and this guy walks up to me, and he's like, "Your shoe's untied." I'm looking down at my shoe, and it's tied. It was actually double knotted. And I look back up, and the person that said that to me was Darius Slay. And he looked away, and he smiled, and he laughed. And I'm like, "I'll get you back sometime." But, anyhow,
man.
it was really funny in the moment. But anyhow, so I got to meet those people, broadcasters wise and journalism wise. I got to meet some awesome people too. Renee Washington, great person. I follow her on LinkedIn, and she does really great stuff. Also Scott Fransky, Tom McCarthy, Dee Lynham, and a whole lot of other people that I can't always even think about. Merrill Reese, Margaret Zumoff, Scott Graham, Boomer Esiason, Jolly from WIP. I really have had the opportunity. Scott Hansen too, another one that was really awesome. He hosts NFL. Oh my gosh, Red Zone. That's what it is. Yeah. Why did it blank out? But yeah, I got to meet some of these awesome people, and I always took notes, and I always recorded the meetings that I had with them at these networking events, and even other journalists. I'm forgetting a whole lot of people, but it's just because there's just so many that I could name. Laura Price, people that work within the Sixers organization. It's not even just the broadcasters themselves. It's about directors and people that are, in those hiring rooms and that type of thing. Got to meet those people, and I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate, and I just am really happy that I got to meet all these awesome people.
That's great. So, what is next for your YouTube channel for the rest of this year?
The rest of this year, it's just to keep growing the community, right? Finish out the baseball season, do stuff for hockey, and try to do a couple of games per week for hockey, and also just get more reps doing football because I don't have as many reps doing football. So I have to be able to get those reps. And that's just as far as content goes. As far as outside of that, I am working on getting more people to help out with the channel and just do little things for me, like social media posts and that type of thing. Just because those little things, they add up, and time goes away. But time also opens up just a little bit. And if it's just a little bit and people are willing to help me out because of the relationships that I've made with people and I continue to give back to them, that's what happens. It's a balancing act. So I want to have more people help me out. Of course, I would love to get monetized. Of course, I would love to have that sort of stuff happen, but I need to have conversations with people. And I am also looking for, people to help support the channel too, and have companies and reach out to people. I'm more of now an entrepreneur, and I never really thought about it until a couple of weeks ago. So just to grow the business and just keep doing what I'm doing. And don't necessarily change the style of the content, but also be willing to adapt and just get the reps, because that's the most important thing. Believe in my business, believe in what I'm doing, support others, and then the other stuff is going to happen organically.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever thought of doing a podcast like Snowman does, outside of play-by-play? Just to interview people about their teams or just whatever you feel like doing?
I have thought about it. It's just that the amount of prep work that I do by myself every single day for just doing baseball and having the conversations with people and doing the headsets and just staying online and networking with people. It's so hard because I want to just do sort of one step at a time and just let other things happen organically. I mean, that's why I still do my Phillies series recap pod, because I don't want to do it every single day because it's just the same story over and over and over and over again. So You know, I'm still getting reps. I'm still getting experience by doing that. But I eventually would love to have an interview with you know, to be able to interview guests, and I eventually am going to do it. Problem is that I think that once I have more people that are willing to help out and volunteer, and once I get the channel into a good spot where I can start shifting things and shifting my focus on things and try to have put more attention to other things than what I'm doing right now, I think it's going to get easier. So I can't necessarily, you know, play with the meat of everything, and I still have to keep this going, but I just don't feel right now, and eventually I will be. I don't feel right now that I'm ready to, you know, be able to do a show for 2 hours just because I'm talking so much more than I've ever been, right? You know, and it would be such a jump. But eventually it's going to come there. I will say one more thing really quickly. I had an opportunity of taking a job out in Oklahoma during my internship program, and I wasn't going to do it because it was during my internship program, and I would have never left there, you know, even if it was for, unless it was for like, I would have never left there. Seriously, I would have never ever done that because it's just not professional. And so, and also, like, would I ever get that experience again? And if I just cut ties with people, that's not a good look. It's just not.
No.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, so I said, forget about that too. Like, you know, don't even think about that part. Like, don't even think about the culture shock part. You know, you're moving to Oklahoma. Okay, that's a culture shock. You're not going to be making a lot of money, and that plays a big factor into it too. But let's just think about it from just the job perspective. Okay, you're going to be doing play-by-play every single day, 2 times a day, and you're going to be doing a show in the morning. So,
or just any time in general.
Right. And so if you're not used to that, if you were only doing like a show like 2 times a week, and you were only doing play-by-play like 2 times a week, that's a lot different. It's a culture shock to you because you're going to fatigue more. You're going to tire out more, and you're not going to be happy. And that's just with the job. That's not even with the homesickness. That's not even with everything else that comes in, making your own food and, you know, having time to like pay, you know, paying for rent and like those types of things. Like that itself is just a lot to throw at somebody because you're not used to that. And so that's one of the other reasons why I knew I had to get the reps here. And that's why I had to stay home, because now I even feel like I'm getting more and more experience. So I don't want to jump it, and I don't want to take a big leap unless I can do it. And I knew that at that time I just could not do it because it would have been so hard. So, you know, I feel like I really just feel like once I'm ready that I will start doing more interviews like on a day-to-day basis, or sorry, just on a weekly basis and have more guests on. But it's just gonna happen when it's ready.
Yeah. And by the way, that is a good format that you have there for the post game. You know, having people give thoughts on their games, because I don't really see that anywhere else, basically. So
it's funny because I looked at when I watched like Broads, and I watched like Philly Take with RB. Sometimes they do it. I mean, Broads does like the anytime hotline, and I don't have a phone line, but I figured that Discord is probably like a really good way to do it, because I don't just like want to do the talking. I don't want to be on for like another hour and just continue to talk about stuff that I've already talked about. But if we can just recap everything and just give our thoughts and have like an opening monologue of 15 minutes, okay, that's enough time of just me talking. Well, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from the people. You know what I mean? Because this is your platform too. I want to share my platform with you guys. And that's how I look at it, because that's how I feel like you become a better radio host and
Yeah,
just, a better
that's what people do on the
content
radio.
creator.
That's what people do on the radio. Have people call in.
Right. Exactly. So,
But this is great. I want to thank you for doing this here on the show, and I want to thank everybody for watching this interview here. And I hope you all have a good night.
David, thank you so much.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that. And now we are going to go to our last interview of the night. And that is the next person is Bradley Walker, who is member of our team who is going to be co hosting National Football and the Hockey Proctors this fall with us. So, Bradley Walker and future David, take it away. All right, folks, we are here. Oh, all right, folks, we are here with the last interview here for this episode of 2000 Hangouts. As you can tell, these interviews are taped and on different days. Today, I'm here with Bradley Walker. How are you doing, Bradley?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. It's nice for you to make your debut here on the Never Thousand Network. Uh, Bradley here is going to be a new co-host for Let's Talk Football. That's going to be airing Wednesdays at 11 p.m. Eastern, and for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern, he's going to be co-host to report Tampa Bay Lightning and say the other team again for the
The
West,
Colorado Avalanche.
Colorado Avalanche. So that'll be for the Hockey Puckers, which will be coming up in October. So stay tuned for that, folks. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have a podcast called The Walker Report. I am the main host. I have 3 co-hosts that come on. We have a fun show every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would be 11. That would be 5 Pacific Time. I've been in love with sports since I was able to crawl. I love football, hockey are my 2 go-tos. And now that football is on the verge of coming back, I'm very excited.
Oh yes, same with college football as well. I could tell you're a big college
Yeah.
fan as well.
I am.
What made you be a sports fan?
I think, Dennis, obviously, I think just the passion, number one, but I think the fans. I mean, the fact that there are so many teams, whether it's college, pro, and everyone has a different opinion. Everyone has their fan bases. I think that's what makes sports so great, is that not everybody cheers for the same team, because it would be pretty boring if that was the case.
I can agree. Yeah. When did you realize, watching sports or following sports was like your main passion?
Probably young. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I'll be 40 the end of next month. How I got into football. I used to have a neighbor next to my grandmother, and every Sunday we would pick the NFL games, and he would ask me why I picked that team. And what I started to do is I started to do some research on teams to pick, and that wasn't just because I like that team or I like their jersey color or whatever. After a while, I started doing research, and I got involved so much with the NFL that it became easy, and I've been an NFL fan for a long time.
Ever tried being part of fantasy football?
No.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What is your favorite team for each sport?
In football, the NFL, I have 2. I have an AFC team and an NFC team. I'm from the Tampa Bay area, So my NFC team is the Buccaneers. My first Bucs game, I was 5 years old. And my AFC team is the Patriots. And before everyone jumps on me and says I'm a bandwagon fan, I was a Patriot fan when Steve Grogan was quarterback, long before Tom Brady and Bill Belichick even got to the team. So, yeah.
He must have been excited when Brady was going to Buccaneers. I'm like, oh, jeez, he's coming to the other team.
I honestly, my mom, God rest her soul, she passed away 2 years ago. She told me that Tom was coming here, and I'm like, why would Tom come to Tampa? That doesn't make any sense. And then, like, an hour later on ESPN, breaking news that he signed with the Bucs. I'm like, oh my God, okay. And then he went to Super Bowl, and I was like, that was great. So, yeah.
It makes sense when he decided to bring some of his former players of the Patriots, like Gronk and those guys, to the Buccaneers, because I can tell you right now, without Gronk, like, Brady is, I mean, yes, Brady is the GOAT, but without Gronk, who knows what Brady's career would have looked like. You know what I mean?
I agree. You can be a great quarterback, but you got to have weapons to throw to. I mean, Mahomes has Travis Kelce, and, he had Tyreek Hill before he went to Miami. So, yeah, I mean, he's had weapons too. So, yes, every great quarterback, even Montana, had to have Rice and Taylor and Roger Craig. So, yeah, they all have to have great weapons to throw the ball to.
And as for the other sports for your teams?
In hockey, I'm a Lightning fan. That's probably my favorite professional sports franchise. I was a season ticket holder after they won their first Stanley Cup in 2004, and they sucked for so many years. And just recently, they won back-to-back, obviously in 2020, during the bubble when we had to go in the bubble in Canada, and we came back and won in 2021 as well. And we got to the finals, against the Avalanche in 23 or 22. We lost to them in 5 games. But I mean, that's probably my favorite hockey team. Probably the most sports memorabilia I have in my room right now has to do with the Lightning. When it comes to baseball, I have 2 teams too. I'm a Red Sox fan, even though I'm not from Massachusetts. I have no ties to Massachusetts at all. And I'm a Rays fan. Actually, Dennis, tomorrow I got credentials to go to my very first MLB game as a press member. So I'm covering the Rays Rockies game tomorrow at Tropicana Field. So that'll be cool. I've never done that. When it comes to college football, USF, I've been covering USF for the last 5 years. This will be my 6th year covering their football team. I get credentials to Raymond James Stadium, and then I was born and bred a Florida Gator. Even though I never attended in Gainesville, I have been there for a game twice. I went there last year, or 2 years ago, to see them play the Knowles, and last year I got to cover USF on the road in Gainesville when they played the Gators. So that was kind of cool too. I'm not an NBA guy. I don't like NBA basketball. I'm just not a fan. I live too far away. I live in Tampa, so Orlando's a 2-hour drive, and Miami's like a 4-hour drive. I'm not a big NBA guy. So.
And what about for? I think I saw the teams that. Yeah. What about for college? It's the Gators, right?
College basketball, it'd probably be the Gators. Yeah, I would have to say that. Yep, SEC. Yep.
All right, and that's pretty cool that you're also a Red Sox fan. Like as you see my profile picture, they just swept the Yankees, so that's awesome. Did you play any sports growing up?
The only one that I played was golf. I've been playing golf since I was 5. My late uncle taught me, but I never played football, but I love it. I never played hockey because I can't skate. I'm in Florida. We don't have snow here. And there's another sport that I like called rugby, but rugby's not very popular in the States. That's kind of out of the country sport. So, yeah.
All right. What do you like the best about college sports for basketball and football or any college sport in general? Like, what do you like the best about it?
I think Dennis on I think what it is it's amateurs. I know they have the NIL now, but I mean they're playing for a possible chance to be a professional when whatever
Oh
sport they're
yeah.
in. Um, and I think a lot of times, and I wrote because the national championship for college hockey was in Amway Arena where the Lightning play last year, and I was trying to get credentials to that. We're not, my website that I write for is not big enough yet to get credentials like that. But I think it's the passion that they play, that they know. It's just fun. I mean, they go to
Yeah.
class and they get to play football and or whatever they do, hockey, baseball, whatever you do in college. You get to go and some of them get scholarships, some of them have to pay their own way or whatever. Some of them are walk-ons that end up getting scholarships. I've watched a lot of scholarship announcements on YouTube. It's kind of cool when the coaches will say, "Oh, and this guy is on full scholarship," and everybody goes nuts. So it's cool to
Hmm.
see some of the walk-on kids get scholarships too. Yep.
And basically see the future of stars. You know,
Right.
just,
Correct.
you always seen that. So tell us how you got the job at. Oh, sorry, you were saying something.
Go ahead.
Oh, that. Oh, okay. How did you get the job at NGSE Sports with the Rays just recently?
So what happened is okay. So I started writing for another website that no longer exists, and that's how I got
MySpace.
to US. No, it was WBLZ Media or iRock Media, whatever. I don't forget what their website was named, but they
Okay.
were the ones who got me, Dennis. The first couple years, I got credentials to USF, all the way up to the pandemic year, so 2020. And yes, if you're wondering, we did have to wear masks in the press box the whole time.
Oof.
The only time you were not allowed to, the only time you were allowed to not wear them is if you were eating or drinking. Other than that, you had to wear a mask the entire time. So, push come to shove, NGSC, I met Ralph, Ralph and John are the guys that run that website. And I met Ralph through Facebook, and we got to talking. I got to meet Ralph last year in Nashville, Tennessee. I got to meet him in person, and we hit it off, and we've been, good friends and workers for a long time. So yeah, it's been, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I think, or maybe 4 years since I've been with NGSC. Yeah, it's been a while. Yep.
Okay. And you're gonna start doing the post game and pre game show for the Rays tomorrow, right?
Yeah. So I have credentials to the game, so I'll be in the press box.
Oh, in the press
gonna-
box, you're not gonna be on TV.
Yeah. No, I will not be on TV.
Okay.
That would be great, but no, I will not be on television.
I was gonna say, I haven't watched it, but unfortunately, but maybe not until 2034. Anyway, so what other experience did you have to get that job?
I mean, that's just writing, and then I had my podcast through one of the guys that used to be part of his network, and he left, and he's doing his own thing now. He's got his own network and stuff like that. And I went back with Ralph and stuff like that. So yeah, just been through my podcasting and writing has been the major things of how I got the job.
All right, cool. And what about? Do you still work at that bank OCK or whatever that is?
I do. That is my day. That's my full-time job. So I don't get paid for the writing or podcasting. That's my full-time job. Yep.
Okay. Well, speaking of jobs, what dream job are you working on? Like, is like for your life goal? Like, is there a life goal that you have for a dream job in the future?
Yeah, actually, this upcoming Friday, I'm going to experience it for real. I want to be a play-by-play guy. I've always wanted to do that. And this Friday, I'm calling my first ever high school football game Friday night. So my dream job is to become a play-by-play guy. Yep. Whether that's on radio or TV, it doesn't matter to me. I take one or the other.
And where can people watch that? Even though this will be aired on September 1st, but
I mean, we're working on trying to live stream it. It's up to the coaches because I don't know if I'm allowed to have it up there and you're hearing plays and stuff like that. So they're working on trying to. It may not be this game. It might be the next game, which is this week and the next week. So I don't know yet. They're trying to work on getting the kinks worked out for us to do live streaming.
Okay. How much research do you do every day, not only for your new job at the Rays, but just in football in general, and other hockey, like college? How much research a day do you do to keep your reps going?
I have like almost every sports app on my phone. So if anything breaks, I will go ahead and take a look at it, and then I go ahead and prep notes. So our show is on Thursday night, and once we do a show, then the next day or even that night, I'm actually prepping for the following show the next week. So I'll collect articles throughout the week and then put them all together for my show on Thursday night.
Awesome. What sports stadiums have you been to?
Sports stadiums that I've been to Fenway Park. I've been to Madison Square Garden. I have been to Raymond James Stadium. I have been to Nissan Stadium where the Tennessee Titans play. I was there to see the Lightning play an outdoor hockey game. At the Yankee Stadium, the old one, not the new one, the one that they built for Babe Ruth. I didn't get to see a game. I was in there to take the tour. It grinds my gears because I hate the Yankees more than any franchise on the planet. But it was kind of cool to sit in the dugout and say, hey, Babe Ruth sat here, Mickey Mantle sat here. It's like all the history of the people that sat in that dugout. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, Fenway Park. People forget. Yes, they know all the history has happened at Fenway Park, but people don't say Babe Ruth played here because people say that by Yankee Stadium, but Babe Ruth actually pitched here and hit here at Fenway Park. So you gotta at least give credit for that, not just Yankee Stadium, So, and as for me, and I only bet to Fenway Park as for the MLB Stadium, but hopefully I could get to more. How did you get started on YouTube or podcasting channel?
So how that all went down was that I was again through my writing. People saw my writing online, and the guy that gave me the job. When I first started doing it, I was only doing audio, so I wasn't doing any. You couldn't see my face; it was just me talking, and. He told me, he said, no, he goes, you got to start doing video. He goes, because you're good, they got to see your face. And I'll be honest with you, I think the first live show that I did video, I was a nervous wreck. But now it's natural. It just comes natural now. So, yep.
That's cool. And how did you get started on the Walker Report podcast?
That was also the same thing. So they told me that I had to, I was a co-host on a show. They told me to come up with a show name. So I went through it, and the Walker Report was created.
Okay. And have you interviewed any players on your podcast before?
As far as that goes, I don't. Not really anybody professionally. We've had authors on, but nothing really. Not. It's hard to get them because again, a lot of them don't want to talk to small podcasts. They, because then you got to pay them and all that stuff too. And I don't have, big pocketbook to to pay these guys. I did a podcast with a friend of mine named Larry Frank. We called it Bullseye. It was all about the USF Bulls, and we did interview Michael Kelly, who's the AD, still currently the AD, and we got to interview some players, past and present players, on that podcast. But he couldn't do it anymore because he moved out of state. So that's what
Okay. At least that was the fun experience for you at the time.
Yes.
Do you watch any sports shows on ESPN or any of that type of stuff?
Yeah, I tried, Dennis, to catch him. Now I know. I think this Saturday, I think College Game Day is back on, so I'll be getting up every Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning to watch College Game Day. But yes, yeah, I'll be. I try to watch. I mean, if it's on ESPN and it's something that I'll watch, yes. I mean, I don't watch every NFL game.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I mean, that's impossible. And then there are teams I don't. Not that I don't like them, just I don't really care to watch them play football. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Are you a GameStop fan at all?
I'm sorry.
Are you a GameStop fan at all?
No.
What about movies?
Movies, I can give you my top 5. Number 1 is Casablanca. I know that movie was made 40 years before I was even born. Number 2 is Shawshank Redemption. Number 3 is Lost in Translation with Scarlett Johansson and Bill Murray. Number 4 is Avatar, and number 5 is Jurassic Park. Those are my top 5.
Pretty cool. Do you have any advice for those who want to follow a new sport?
What I would say is, when I always research or I do a new sport, I always try to go back and look at the men or women who made that sport great, and go back and do your research and stuff like that. But I mean, be passionate about it. I mean, not every sport you want to get into is going to be interesting. I mean, some sports are boring. It happens like that. So, it just depends. Yep.
Definitely. And next question is, what do you have planned for the future?
Again, my plans are, really to, continue to podcast and write. That's definitely something. I mean, again, my dream job obviously would be for me to become a play-by-play broadcaster. So that would be my goal. But here. But yeah, that's basically it.
Alrighty. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching this interview here. We'll get back to sorry for the camera wasn't working. It's just difficulties right now. But anyway, let's get to the next segment. Don't forget to subscribe to the 3000 Network for great more content like this one.